Shalom and welcome to another podcast from Bay Abadan, teaching Noahide Judaism for Messianic Hebrews. It is the 5th of May, 2025, and it's time to talk a little bit about May and anti-fascism and May in its relationship to Noahides. As you know, there are several holidays to be observed in May, and the attitude towards these holidays that Noahides should take has to be discussed because we need to look at the origins of these days. Now, the first day of May, the 1st of May, is International Workers' Day, also known as Labor Day in America. It's International Workers' Day. All around the world, people celebrate an event which took place in American history. And it's a tragedy that most Americans do not know that this is part of their history, that the whole world celebrates. I don't know why they wouldn't know such a thing. It's like, if you've got some event which took place in your nation's history and the whole world is celebrating it, even, enemy countries like the Soviet Union was celebrating it, don't you think that American citizens should know about this? Don't you think this should be like the biggest thing on the news that everybody should know about in the United States of America? But no, it's completely covered up. Even the name of the day is changed to Labor Day in America so that people do not know in the United States of America exactly what is going on around the rest of the world. I mean, that's totally insane. But so it's called May Day around the world. Also, you got to know that phrase, May Day, May Day. It's a big and important day. May Day, May Day. Why do we say May Day, May Day? It means help, doesn't it, when people send a May Day signal? And that's actually what was happening. People were demanding, attention and help and to people to have a look at what was going on, where they were being oppressed by the capitalists. And that's why America won't let their population know about this, because it was a day when the working class rose up against the capitalists and won. That's what happened on this day. They actually had an uprising demanding an end of not just the end of slavery, because slavery had already been abolished, but what's going on now is that employees were being treated like slaves, and they demanded to minimize the amount of work that they were going to do, to put a limit. That's what I want to say, not to minimize. They want to put a limit on the amount of work they were going to do per day to make it an 8-hour work day, not to exceed 8 hours of work a day, so that people had some free time. The idea that you should have, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours of free time to do whatever you want, and that would be a 24-hour day. So they were actually fighting for an 8-hour workday, and they won. They actually won. That's not just for them. They actually won for the whole planet. The whole planet started implementing the 8-hour workday, thanks to an event which took place in the United States of America. Isn't that interesting? I don't know why Americans are generally unaware of this, but this is something which needs to be paid attention to. It's something which culminated. It began on the 1st of May, 1886, and it culminated in something called the Haymarket Affair on the 4th of May. And that demonstration from the 1st of May to the 4th of May, or May the 4th, became a yearly event. Commemorating that demonstration became a yearly event, which became popular all around the world. Now, because capitalists don't want their populations to know that the 1st of May, which is just too popular to suppress, that the 1st of May, the May Day celebrations, the Labor Day movement, the celebration, this beginning of May, from the 1st of May to the 4th of May, May the 4th, that they don't want the population to know that it's all about the workers rising up against the capitalist classes, and so they have gone to all efforts to try and bury this history and hide it. Not just in the United States of America, but all around the world, capitalists are united in trying to hide the origin of this holiday. This is not a secret. This is absolutely the fact. You can go into research into it, but they have tried to bury it. And in the 20th century, because all this, took place in the 19th century, in the 1886, and then in 1889, the Second International for Labor, Socialist and Marxist parties, the Second International, sort of International Congress, the International Workers' Congress, which was held in Paris in 1889, adopted this day. They adopted a resolution for a great international demonstration in support of working class demands for the 8-hour day, which was inspired by the United States. And so The communists, the socialists, the labor movement, the International Workers' Congress decided that this day should be remembered, and that is why the whole world celebrates this day today. That's why it's called International Workers' Day. Okay. When the 20th century came along, it was a problem. The workers' movement had got to the point where they had the revolution, the Russian Revolution, which basically pulled Russia out of World War One, and that was the sort of alarm bells went off for capitalists around the world, thinking, okay, we've got to do something about this. This May Day is a serious problem. May Day, May Day. they were panicked about May Day. All right, so they actually started to invent ideas about what May Day actually was. They started to invent maypoles. Pagan idea, and they said it has a pagan origin. They started to invent maypoles and dancing around maypoles in May, as if the 1st of May was even a date which was known by pagans. The Romans introduced the Julian calendar, which isn't even used by any countries in the world yet now anymore. There's only the Russian Orthodox Church still uses Julian calendar, and some what we call old calendarist Orthodox churches still use the Julian calendar, but nobody else on the planet uses the Julian calendar anymore. And when the Romans introduced the Roman calendar, the Julian calendar, the 1st of May was not recognized by the pagans and say, oh yes, we're going to adopt the Roman holiday. There was no Roman holiday on the 1st of May. There was no Roman holiday on the 1st of May. It's absolutely insane to imagine that these pagan people, which were conquered by Romans in the Christian era, because the Julian calendar was invented just around it was started to be implemented around the turn of the Christian era, the current era that we use right now. It was invented. It was an adaptation of the Egyptian calendar used by Cleopatra, who introduced it to Julius Caesar, and it was named after Julius Caesar after that. It was originally an Egyptian calendar, and this calendar, as it began to be implemented, pagans didn't suddenly say, oh yes, we're going to use this foreign calendar which has been imposed upon us, and we're going to adopt the 1st of May as a day for celebrating holidays. It didn't happen. There was no Roman holiday on the 1st of May, and there were no pagan holidays being celebrated on the Roman date, the 1st of May. There may have been pagan holidays, for summer and all sorts of things like that. Pagans usually observed seasons, and so they would observe things like the solstice, that would have been important for them, and the equinoxes, that would have been important for them. But a date on the Roman calendar was not important. Nevertheless, in the 20th century, people began to be convinced that this had something to do with pagan celebration. Now, why did this happen? Again, I'm telling you, because they had to try and bury the original meaning of what May Day was all about. They had to bury the International Workers' Day. They had to bury Labor Day and had to pretend that it was about something else. They had to pretend that because there had been a revolution and the capitalists were in trouble. They were absolutely terrified. At the beginning of the 20th century, they said, here we are 100 years on, and they're actually in control of the planet, very secure, very comfortable in their position. But at that time, they were in desperate panic, and so they tried to bury this. And that's why you won't find much about the holiday. You just say, well, there's a kind of a Maybank holiday, but nobody really knows what it's about. It's Labor Day. It's something to do with working. They don't really have an idea. International Workers' Day, it's not called that. In the English language, it's generally called, in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they call it May Day. That's to hide the origins of this. So, but May Day doesn't have, it's not about maypoles, and the history of International Workers' Day has got nothing to do with paganism. But if you see a history of May Day in the newspapers or online somewhere, in the social media, it's most likely to recount some kind of mystical medieval origins of the pagan fertility festival. Again, the problem with this is that the calendar was changed again in 1852, and so the 1st of May actually changed. There was 10 days instead. It actually moved forward by 11 days. So it doesn't even correspond to medieval times either, But nevertheless, that's what you're going to see. Some kind of medieval origins of a pagan fertility festival. And although you've probably never seen a maypole in your life, and you probably haven't seen Morris dances unless you've been to some English countryside village where they put these things on to try and obscure the origins of May Day, you'll be assured that the ribbons The ribbon pieces of birchwood is the sign and sanction of May Day. But this is actually the exact opposite. This has got little to do with the real reason that the 1st of May is celebrated around the world. And it's got nothing to do with the reason why it's an international holiday. Yeah, it's nothing to do with why it's celebrated in English countries around the world, or English-speaking countries around the world, and it's got nothing to do why it's an international holiday. And it's got also, you're not going to see any kind of reason or connection between this and the Occupy movement. You remember the Occupy movement? And there are usually plans around the 1st of May, around the beginning of May, to have global disruption to cause problems to capitalists because it is a day of revolution. It's a day of revolution, specifically an American revolution, which took place with the Haymarket Affair, the 4 days from the 1st of May to the 4th of May. And it's celebrated around the world because that was such an inspiring event that the view of the Americans spread around the world from that event. It didn't spread from any other thing. It wasn't that the American Revolution against the British had such an inspiration around the world that everybody was inspired to do something and say, oh, Americans are wonderful because of that. No, that had really very little impact. Nobody was interested in that being some kind of motivation thing, saying, oh, the Americans are so wonderful, they threw off the colonialists. They were colonists themselves. And colonized places, colonies, were not impressed by a bunch of colonists gaining independence from their mother country, if you like. No, that didn't impress them. And it wasn't the abolition of slavery, which took a very long time to come about, which impressed the whole world either, because Britain, for example, had already abolished slavery long before the United States got on board with that. There are many countries that had already abolished slavery by the time America came along. America was late on the show with that. And it wasn't due to anything the Americans did in the 20th century that made the whole world think that America was great. Why was America invited into World War I in the first place? Why did people, petition? Because they thought Americans stood for something new. What was it the Americans stood for? And it was this event. It was the events of the Haymarket Affair, the events that took place from the 1st of May, 1886, until the 4th of May, 1886, which guaranteed an 8-hour workday for the people. That is what actually inspired the world. People thought, wow, it's a new world order coming from the United States of America. They have actually changed the order. The working classes are now able to rise up and demand better deal from the employers, the employer class, and it's because of the Americans. Americans still get a pretty good deal when you can just be a simple laborer, a manual laborer. You can get a good pay in the United States of America, which is actually not the case across the rest of the world. So this is actually something which took place in the United States and inspired the world to think that's America. They stand for liberty. They stand for freedom. They stand for the workers' rights. They stand for the ability of a worker to get a fair deal. Now, that's not what America stands for today, is it? No. We have to be honest, that's not the case now. But that is what this day was about. And that's what inspired people to give them a view. Now, the legacy of that day, passing on into consciousness from parent to child around the world, is why America still sort of benefits from a generally positive view among people around the world, although that image has been severely damaged over the past 100 years and is almost disintegrating right now. But there has been a generally positive view for 100 years about the United States of America and the opportunities it provides to the working man and woman, to the working class, only because of this Haymarket Affair. And that's why we had the International Workers' Day. So that's the first thing you've got to know about. And so you should be paying attention every time May comes around, because when May comes around, that's your chance to basically stick it to the man, if you understand what I'm talking about. That's your chance to stand up and be counted. That's your chance to stand with the working class around the world, that, the 99%, against the 1%, and say, we are what make your world possible. And without us, you have nothing. Give us a better deal. It's basically a chance to say, give us a better deal, give us a fair deal. We want a better deal day. That's what it is. And it should be remembered in such a way. All right, then. So, but then, as I said, they started to try and hide that in the 20th century they tried to bring about sort of pagan festivities and maypoles and Morris dances and things like that, which were implemented. And nowadays, people assume that this sort of paganized view of May Day is what it's all about, and that's why it's important for us to talk about it as Noahides, because are Noahides allowed to celebrate any kind of pagan activity like that? The answer is no. So a Noahide, if they thought that May Day was about maypoles and fertility rites and everything like that, then the simple answer is keep away from it. But it's not about that. It's been made to look like that in order to make people who are monotheistic shun this. Now that religion is breaking down around the world, it's easier to talk about this and say, this is the true origins of May Day. But in the 20th century, that was religion, monotheistic religion, was a major way of controlling people's minds. It doesn't mean that monotheistic religion is wrong. Monotheistic religion is completely right. We promote that and support that on this channel. But what it means is that the religions were taken hold of by political forces in the 20th century specifically to control the minds of the population and to prevent them from thinking outside of the box and to prevent them from seeing what was right in front of their eyes, because as long as they had a pastor or an imam or a rabbi in a pulpit telling the rest of the congregation what was going on, most people were happy to accept. In the 20th century, most people were happy to accept what was being peddled to them from the pulpit. Pulpit peddlers, okay? They were happy to accept what the pulpit peddlers were pushing on them, and that's how it was in the 20th century. That's not how it is anymore. That's not how it is anymore. Things have changed. And so people are not ready to accept that so much. But that is the true origin of May Day. So as Noahides, are you allowed to celebrate this day as a commemoration of getting the 8-hour work day? Absolutely, you can. Anything like that. Do you know why? Because Noahides have to fight for justice, and that is one of the fundamental laws of Noah, of the covenant, the Rainbow Covenant. And so this day is absolutely a wonderful day for Noahides to celebrate. And of course, some of you are going to be celebrating that today. The United Kingdom, it's a bank holiday, which is why I'm able to speak to you right at this time of the morning, because it's a bank holiday, and people are celebrating May Day today, even though it actually was the 1st of May, was last week, at the end of last week on, I think it was Thursday. Yeah, it was Thursday last week that we had the 1st of May, but here we are on the 5th of May, and it's being celebrated today in the United Kingdom, and maybe other countries in the world are also having a bank holiday today, so that's why we're talking about it today. It's a celebration of establishing and fighting for justice, which is exactly a very, very good thing that Noahides should do. So yeah, absolutely observe this day. Think about this and focus on this day. It's a great thing to do. But make sure you get the right idea. It's a day for establishing justice. It's a day for fighting for justice. It's a day for fighting against capitalists and fascism. Interestingly enough, that brings us on to another point. As I said, we're not just talking about May Day itself, but May in general and anti-fascism. See, May the 4th, as the 4th day of the march, which took place at the Haymarket Affair, the culmination of the whole thing was May the 4th, which has become May the 4th, is known as International Star Wars Day. Why is it International Star Wars Day? Well, apart from trying to bury the meaning of May Day and the Haymarket Affair, there is another aspect to it, because you can try to suppress something with another idea, but in this May the 4th, of course, May the Force be with you is a pun. May the 4th be with you. The pun is the Force be with you. So it became an idea that the rebels, who were all about the Force and the Jedi fighting against the Sith and the Dark Lords of the Sith, who were the dark side of the Force, May the Force be with you is a greeting which was given by the Jedi to each other. And so it was, again, a symbol of fighting against fascism, because, of course, the fascist empire in the Star Wars franchise, represented by Darth Vader and the Sith Lord, Darth Sidious himself, and his cartels. Okay, his cartels. Okay, so the May the 4th, again,
it's a big international holiday. I don't know how many of you realize how big Star Wars is around the world, but Star Wars is a very, very big thing around the world. And unfortunately, a lot of people are more familiar with Star Wars than they are with the origin of Labor Day, the origin of International Workers' Day, the origin of these early May Day holidays, like early May Bank holiday. It's quite crazy that people know more about Star Wars than they do about the origin of the May Bank holiday. But somehow that's how it's become. And I'm also a Star Wars fan, so I can understand the popularity of this franchise. But nevertheless, it's something which is sort of burying the history, if you like. Nevertheless, the White House issued their greeting for May the 4th yesterday. I saw this on Reddit, and this is what I saw. You can have they've got this little picture of Donald Trump there holding a Sith lightsaber. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? So the White House has actually identified him as the dark side, an evil Sith Lord, which is very interesting because they were making a greeting to people on May the 4th, and they were actually sending their messages to the radical left lunatics. I think that they were maybe implying that the radical, in some kind of hidden coded language, that the radical left lunatics might be able to identify. There might be more Star Wars fans in the radical left lunatics than there are in the right, who are all more likely to be religious fanatics who think that Star Wars is some kind of evil thing because it's got the Force in it, and that's some kind of replacement of God or something like that. So instead of talking about the far right lunatics, they like to say the radical left lunatics. And this might be a sort of a slap in the face to them, saying, "Hey, radical left lunatics, happy May Day, happy May the 4th be with you. And here you have a Darth Sidious Sith Lord in charge of the White House right now with his red lightsaber." If you don't know, the red lightsabers are only used by the Sith Lords, the people who use the dark side of the Force. And so they're actually representing Trump as a Sith Lord, as a bad guy. Either this is because Trump wanted that, by the looks of the muscle-bound Trump they have generated on the AI picture here. It's probably because Donald Trump wanted to come across as being a muscle-bound hero. And maybe he wanted to have the red lightsaber because he said, "I like the red lightsaber, I like Darth Sidious, I like Darth Vader," and that's his role models, and he's modeling himself on that. And so maybe they just followed instructions. Or maybe they only followed instructions with regards to making him look like some kind of hero, muscle-bound hero, and they themselves put in the red lightsaber because they hate him. And they were trying to say, actually, we're under a Sith Lord. We're under like the Dark Emperor right now. Anyway, it's quite interesting that they gave this greeting on May the 4th, representing Trump as a Dark Lord of the Sith. Very interesting. So he's on the dark side of the Force, and he doesn't stand with the rebels. He doesn't stand with the Rebel Alliance, which is the revolution, of course. Revolution. It's the same Indo-European linguistic root here we're talking about. They came from the same word. So the revolution that we are remembering at the beginning of May, the fight for the workers' rights is definitely what Donald Trump is against. He's shutting down jobs left, right, and center, causing difficulty for working families. The only people who are actually benefiting are the billionaires, the multi-billionaires, and the mega rich classes are actually benefiting from that. The employers are benefiting from that, but the employees themselves are suffering. So it's an exact sort of topsy-turvy, turning on its head situation where they've taken the Labor Day and they turned it upside down. And the celebrations at the beginning of May concerning this, they've turned it upside down, and they said the Dark Lord of the Sith is over you. Ha ha ha! May the 4th be with you. It's a sarcastic comment, and I think that's interesting that they know that, because it's not just this issue, which is a funny sort of way of remembering that this is a fight against fascism. That's what the early May holidays were about, fighting against fascism. Star Wars, of course, is replacing something else, which is a more serious fight against fascism, which is celebrated again around the world this week. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is anybody tuned in enough? Type it in the comments now. You've got 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Congratulations if you managed to get something in that time. The thing we celebrate this week is the abolition of fascism in Europe when the Nazi Party was defeated. We beat up on fascists this week. This is what we do in this week. We beat up on fascists. We slam them. We destroy them. We conquer them because it is a celebration of the defeat of the Nazis by the Soviet Union, forcing them to sign that unconditional surrender in Berlin on May the 8th at, I think it was about 11:45 it was actually Central European time. It was 1 minute past 11 on the 8th of May 1945 when they signed the general instrument of surrender, a complete unconditional surrender of the remaining German armed forces to the Allies, which officially ended World War II in Europe. Now, this is an interesting thing because Donald Trump is trying to move that. Actually, he did mention May the 8th of May, but ironically, the day that America got a ceasefire agreement from the Germans was in France the day before in Reims on the 7th of May. But it was actually a completely worthless document. It wasn't signed in the capital city of the occupying power. It was signed not even in the capital city of the occupied country. It was signed in Reims. And it was only a declaration of non-aggression, basically, with the United States of America. So it was pretty much worthless because the Central Powers in Berlin could have easily said that was signed by a general who had simply surrendered that part of the Nazi army to the Americans. And there's no need for the Nazis or Germany in general to recognize that piece of paper, that document which was signed on the 7th of May with the United States of America. Okay, so that was worthless on the 7th. I think that Donald Trump was trying to say that they're going to no longer celebrate the 8th of May as Victory Day or VE Day. They were, I think he was trying to say that America is now going to only recognize the 7th of May, signing of the surrender of the Nazis to the Americans in France as the holiday. But because he's an idiot, he screwed up and he just ended up saying the 8th of May has changed its name. Anyway, let me point out to you and remind you that I think he screwed up big time because it was the conquest of fascism, the defeat of the fascists, the defeat of the Nazis, which took place on the 8th of May when that document was signed in Central European time at 11 p.m. on the 8th of May 1945. It was the defeat of fascism, the conquest of the Nazis. And maybe since he has so much sympathy for fascists and Nazis, it seems that he would have tried to move America away from remembering the 8th of May and try to get them onto the 7th of May instead. But because he's an idiot, he screwed up and he just reiterated the 8th of May instead of the 7th of May. Now, if you're under any doubt that Donald Trump's party, the people who feed him the script and tell him what to say, if you're under any doubt that they are actually fascist Nazis, you need to understand what the meaning of Greenland is among the Nazis. Now, if you're a Nazi, you already know what Greenland means, and if you're a very serious Jew who researches the Nazis to understand, your enemy, because Jews who are concerned about such things do try to understand our enemies by researching them very deeply. If you're not one of the two camps, either the Jews researching them or the Nazis who know the secret sign language, you might not know what Greenland means. So I'll give anybody out there who has knowledge on this, I'll give you a chance again to write in the comments and get your comment up there to show that you know the secret knowledge. So you've got 10 seconds again. If you know what Greenland means, give the code word what it means and write it into the Germanic language that you know what that means. I'll give you 10 seconds now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. If you wrote it in there, congratulations again. The meaning is Thule. Greenland stands for Thule, Thule. Do you know what the Thule Society is? If you don't know what the Thule Society is, you should read up on the Thule Society. It is a neo-pagan movement which is the heart and soul of the fascist Nazi movement. It is only recognized by people who are Somebody put Antarctica. Good guess. Good guess. You were close. It was Greenland, Gapper. God bless you for your attempt there. Good guess. Greenland is Thule. Okay, good guess. And I mean, at least you got a cold, frozen area of landmass there, so you're kind of close. A lot of people think about Nazis and Antarctica because Antarctica is what people think about when they talk about Nazis from the polar regions and the importance of the Antarctica. But that's a little bit of a red herring which is thrown out there to throw off the masses so that the masses don't understand what the plans of the Nazis really are. Greenland was, and ever shall be the mythical homeland that the Nazis believe they evolved in. They believe they evolved there as the Hochmensch, a kind of higher species of mankind which evolved in Greenland. It is the motherland, the homeland. And so every time Trump's team says Greenland, 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 they're actually giving a secret handshake, if you like. They're doing a secret sign hidden in plain sight. Sign to those other members of the Thule Society that, hey, we're on your side. We're also giving you our sign here. You know what we're talking about. That's what Greenland means. Whether Trump is ever going to invade that, I doubt that. I doubt that he is going to. He says that he hasn't ruled out military force to annex Greenland. I doubt that that's the case. I think it's simply his way or his team's way, even if Trump himself may be completely oblivious to this sort of thing, because I don't think he's compos mentis. I don't think he's all there. I think he's senile. I think he's very uneducated. I doubt he can read properly. He's very much a puppet for a group of people who have found him to be sympathetic to their cause. Okay, without going to the details, I don't think he knows much about what he's got to say. Probably the one you should be concerned about is Trump Jr., the younger people. They are the Trump Juniors, I should say. Those younger generation of Trumps are probably the ones who are more savvy and in the know concerning what Greenland means, and maybe they really are total fascist Nazis who believe in the Thule Society religious doctrine and are promoting that. This is an inner sanctum. At a certain level, you'll think the Nazis are promoting some kind of Christianity, but what they call positive Christianity. But when you get under the surface and go deeper into it, you realize, no, they're not actually. They're actually promoting a form of pagan Satanism, and the Christianity is just a cover. First of all, they try to get you into Gnosticism, which is every Gnosticism except for Ebionite Gnosticism. Every Gnosticism is Luciferianism, the idea that they have this great secret of Gnosticism, which is no secret anymore unless you're totally, moronic and haven't done any kind of basic research on the matter. The great secret of Gnosticism is that they say that Jesus is actually Lucifer, and that he has come to overthrow the wicked god Jove, who had existed beforehand. I didn't say the full name there because I'm Jewish and I have to use a euphemism, so I used a euphemism there. So that's what the Gnostics teach you. And they don't tell you that directly. First of all, they get you hooked on the idea that the old law has been done away with, and now we're free from that old law. We have Jesus now. We don't need the law's gone. That's the first thing they get you on. Then they say the God of the Old Testament was an angry God, but Jesus is a loving God, and starting to get you the idea that there's actually somehow a change in gods, and to make you start hating the Jewish God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And once you've come around to that, accepting the idea that there is an angry God of the Old Testament versus a loving God of the New Testament, they start to bring you into the Luciferian circles, and they start to tell you, well, actually Jesus was the serpent in the garden. He was crucified on the cross for you, and he's trying to break you out of the control of the demiurge who is in control of the planet right now. So that's the sort of the way they do it. They say that Jesus is Satan who is fighting against the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in order to liberate you from the wicked laws of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you'll think, well, why do they do that? And fundamentally because, I'm sorry, this is not an offense to anybody who's homosexual out there. I completely disagree with people beating up homosexuals or causing difficulty for you. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of gay men are under the impression that the Bible is completely against them and wants to kill them all. And so they believe that the God of the Old Testament, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is an evil, wicked devil, and that they need to have a new God who is going to replace that wicked devil. And they like the idea that Jesus might have been gay because they have comments in the in the book of John, where it says the disciple Jesus loved was leaning against the chest of Jesus at the Last Supper. And they thought, oh, that sounds nice and gay. We've got a nice new gay God here. Jesus is our gay God, and he's the one who has replaced the wicked anti-homosexual God of the Old Testament, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so that is where this comes from. It actually comes from a homosexual movement, which is actually a very ancient homosexual movement from Rome, of course, the Greco-Roman tradition. There was a lot of homosexuality in that. And they felt that they had been ostracized, cut out of the picture as Christianity developed, and the spread of the God of Abraham, respect for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob spread around the world. So this sexual society, this undercurrent in society, who kept themselves, I mean, you don't imagine for yourself for a moment that there have never been any homosexuals in the world for the past 2,000 years, and suddenly they erupted onto the planet in the 20th century. No, they were always there. They were just in a secret societies of themselves, and they had their own little secret ways of revealing themselves to each other. And that's basically the foundation of, for example, it's called the Bilderberg group, which has their meetings in the forests, and there's only men allowed, that sort of thing. And Alex Jones went in there indicating, he had to do something in order to go in there, because it was fundamentally a homosexual meetup for bisexual and homosexual men who are happy to have free sex with each other. So that's the sort of society that was out there. Like I said, I'm not against homosexuals who are wanting to be Noahides and who are abstaining from homosexual acts on Saturdays. God bless you. You're doing your best. I understand that you are struggling just as much as a drug addict who is trying to give up any kind of addiction on a Saturday in order to show that they want to keep holy the Sabbath day. They love the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they want to respect his ways. And God has made it easier for you by making it only necessary that you abstain from these things on a Saturday, that you show some self-control on the Saturdays. Okay, so God bless you if you're one of those homosexuals who's doing your best. As for those people who don't realize that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is a merciful God who has made a possibility for such people to give them a chance to be Gerim of the gates, to be Noahides of the gates. As for those of you who don't realize that and still think that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is evil, wicked, monstrous person who wants to kill all homosexuals, and therefore you want to kill him and get rid of all the people who follow him, well, you are still the problem on the planet. You have been and always shall be the problem on the planet, because you are implacably hostile. You are implacably hostile, and that is a big issue. You're trying to destroy socialism by making everybody think that socialism is somehow bound up with identity politics. That is not the case. There is no relationship between socialism and identity politics, and those people who have created the idea that it is are absolutely 100% totally shills and shill organizations who are trying to change the narrative in order to distract people again from the real issue, which is the working class. Okay, somebody who is fighting for the working class. It's us against them. If you are a working class homosexual who is suffering in a bad job, then your enemy is the billionaire employer who's trying to oppress your rights and take your workers' rights away from you. And your ally is the straight guy or gal next to you. Okay, your ally is not the homosexual transvestite multi-billionaire. And if you think that the multi-billionaire transvestite is your ally because you're gay, you are deluded. Okay, you are deluded. If you're a working class gay person and you think the billionaire gay person is your ally because you're both gay and you're walking the pride parades, you're deluded. Your ally is the working class, like you, who are all on the same struggle. It's a class struggle, folks. It's just a class struggle. It's an us and them. That is correct. It is an us and them, but it's the workers versus the exploitative employers. That's all it is. The workers versus the exploitative class, the people who are exploiting the working class. They are your enemies. Every billionaire out there who is not giving you the income that is coming from the company and making a fair distribution of the profits of the company among the employees of that company. Every company which is doing that, and everybody who owns such a company like that, is your enemy. You are doing the work. You deserve a fair share of the profits. It's simple justice. It is fundamental. Why haven't you got that? Because you are oppressed. That's all there is to it. And every second of every working day that passes by when you are not getting your fair share of the profits of the company that you're working for. Every second that passes by, you are being robbed by a thief, and those thieves need to pay back what they have robbed from their workers. And that is the simple fact, okay? That is justice. And if that's not coming about, then we are suffering injustice. And that's why it's important to talk about May and anti-fascism, okay? We have to fight against such things. There's somebody there, I don't know, there's one person in the comments there writing a lot of comments there. Let's have a look. It says Gapa Chojash is writing a lot of things. And it's suggesting that mediated capitalism is the way, not being its enemy. Leftish neoliberalism, anti-capitalism can be anti-liberal, thus false. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for GAPA. Anybody who's like GAPA, is you can come and join me in the studio if you are serious and you've got something to say. You can either join me in the studio, or you can stop commenting, because obviously you're just one of those people who's just a phony. But if you've got something serious to say, come and join me in the studio. We can have a talk about this, because this is a good time to talk about May and anti-fascism. So I've put the link into the studio there. All you need is a microphone, and you will probably either have a video or upload a picture. So like I've got a picture and I haven't got a video showing me. You can upload a picture, create a name. So you can have an avatar, a picture, and your microphone is working. Come on into the studio. We can talk about what you've got to say. So the point is, we're focused on May and anti-fascism. So those are the three things I wanted to cover mostly. The origin of the labor movement, the International Workers' Day, the beginning of May, the 1st of May, May Day, and its origin in the social justice and establishment of workers' rights, the 8-hour workday, how the capitalists tried to cover it up by the creation of May Day paganism in the 20th century, a new invention that made people think about that they'd had a different origin. We also talked about Star Wars, May the 4th be with you, again, a fighting against the fascists, and a symbol of fighting against the Rebel Alliance against the fascists. We looked at the identification of the White House of Trump as a dark Sith Lord instead of as somebody who's actually on the side of the revolution. And then we looked, of course, this week, the 8th of May, being the day that we remember the defeat of the fascists, the defeat of the Nazis, and the conquest of fascism. And we beat up on fascism this week. That's what we were supposed to do. We beat up on fascists. And Gapa has joined me in the studio, so we'll be adding him to the live stream, or her to the live stream very soon. I don't know if it's a male or female. And if you want to listen to what's going on, we can continue that later. If you want to, other people have got something to say, you can come and join as well. Click on the link and just tell us in the chat what you're going to be joining us for. Gappa, would you put up, while we're waiting, would you put up an avatar, please, so that there is a picture on your screen rather than just a kind of a grey blob with a human there? That would be great. And so this is what I want to say to you again in this week is May, for Noahides, this is a time for you to really march and fight for justice, to go walking on the streets with others, any group, as allies against the thieves who are stealing pennies from you every single day. They're stealing your pennies and you should be getting those profits. And by the way, when they make you continue to work an 8-hour workday, when they've already replaced most of your work with computers or with AI, which is happening, and they're still making you work an 8-hour workday, that's also not fair, because their profits are going up and up and up, and you're getting the same pay, when in fact you should either be getting a pay rise, or you should be getting your work hour, the number of hours you're working, cut again for the same amount of money. So you get paid the same amount of money, but you get your work hours cut because your work has been taken away from you by AI. They benefit from that, but you're not benefiting from that. So there is theft taking place all the time. That's what's going on all the time. We need to fight against that. So May really is a time to beat up on the fascists. And I don't mean go and beat up the fascists. Thank you, Gappa. I see that you've got a picture there. What kind of a picture is that? Let's just have a look. Okay, it's a kind of a star. All right, then. All right, that seems like it should be okay. Thank you so much. And so I'm not telling you to go up and beat up fascists, and certainly not to go and kill fascists, but beat up on fascism. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's definitely the time to go out and beat up on the fascists. All right, that's what we've got to do. That's what it's all about. got to beat up on the fascists, beat up on the Nazis, and don't give them any quarter, don't give them any breathing space. Take it all away from them, and make sure you send that message that May is going to be a time to remember that original revolution which took place in the United States of America in the Haymarket Affair. Well, thank you so much for listening. I have got the comment there saying, okay, he's put the picture up, and so it adds you to the stream. That's the end of this stream for now, but if you want to continue listening, then you're welcome to listen to what Gappa has got to say. Shalom, Gappa, welcome to the studio. You're live. So,
hello, is my voice all right?
Your voice is on, yes. There's a little bit of a crackle in your microphone, but it's working. Yeah. I'll just say that I will terminate the show if there is anything obscene or any kind of
I get it. I know you. I know you.
You understand.
Okay.
So let's go through your comments then.
No. Let me present it myself here.
Yeah, I'll put it on the screen. You tell me what you mean. Yeah, it's on the screen. Okay. First comment there.
So first axis is about capitalism, and the second one is about fascism and nationalism. Let's take on capitalism, okay? I think that Marxist ideas are weaponizing the vast population of workers, okay? But the managers and the ones who are owning the things are taking risks. They are putting intelligence into work. They deserve the more share of the profit. Okay, not this way. I am implying at a mediated form of capitalism. That means that you have to be fair to worker, but not that those commonwealth stuff. You see, why? What is the philosophical ground? Because the initiative, the entrepreneurship that is there, it brings the value. Okay, you see, you are just a muscle, so you deserve what you get. And some idealistic utopian things, okay, it is not it is not well deserved, it is not well earned for a worker, okay, to work and demand the same share of the money from his neurons. His neurons has done the job to analyze the space and do some work, okay. So I think that the capitalism is in the right grounds, okay. It is natural to be that way, that someone's excels, someone has more, someone has less. But we need to just be a little more social, not to go into the socialism, but be more social. This position I conceptualize it as leftish, leaning left neoliberalism. I'd like to okay, if you have anything.
Okay, well, thank you for expressing yourself. I'm going to ask you, push back a little bit. I'm just going to push back a little bit on some of the things you said. So do you equate liberal with socialism?
No. There can be some liberals that are socials or not social. We have left libertarianism and right libertarianism.
Right, that's correct. So it's not correct to ever use the term liberals if you're talking about the left, because you could use the term liberals when you're talking about the right as well. That's absolutely a fact. So we have to avoid using that term. Although I noticed you used it, and this has been recorded and sent out live, so you can check it back again yourself later when you want to listen. You can see that you used the term liberals as if it meant left earlier on today. Is that just an accident?
Yeah, because it is complicated, and left anti-liberalism, it has a different characteristics than right anti-liberalism. See, but
well, there's two. If you think about political spectrum correctly, there is not one straight line between the left and the right. The correct way to think about a political spectrum is as a cube, as a room, and you're inside the room with four walls. You've got four walls around you, you've got a ceiling and a floor. So you've got six surfaces you can go to, and they oppose each other. The ceiling opposes the floor. The one wall opposes another wall. Yeah, it's a three-dimensional thing. So the axis that we really have to think about to understand political spectrum correctly are liberalism versus authoritarianism. That's one axis, from no law to total control.
okay, micromanaged law, okay, on one axis. Another would be private property to public property, public ownership on one side to private ownership on the other side, meaning that there is the extreme on the one side would be extreme private ownership, meaning that there is no public ownership. Every piece of land is owned by some private individual. Okay, that's one side. And the opposite side is there is total public ownership. All land and all property is fundamentally owned by the state and maybe leased by individuals, but can be reclaimed by the state and given to other people as necessary, depending on where the need arises. So that would be the complete opposite of total private ownership would be total public ownership. That would be another axis. So we've got two different axes anyway, and that's already given us a cross. Liberal versus authoritarian, and public versus private. And then we have another axis as well, which is nationalism versus internationalism. So nationalism, meaning we don't care about anybody else, only ourselves, and everybody else can go screw themselves, versus internationalism, we are all humans on the planet, and we are all equal, and we have only one identity, human identity. That's the other axis. And so you can plot somebody's political persuasion by finding out their answers to where they are on this axis, on these three axes, where you are on nationalism, where you are on public ownership, and where you are on authoritarianism. And in answer to those three places, we can gauge everybody's political position, even if they think they are anti-political. Because in fact, to believe you're apolitical or anti-political is just a self-delusion. It means you haven't understood politics. Everybody is political, but you just need to identify where they are on these three axes. And then you can also identify the trajectory in which the person is going by asking them the same questions next month and another month later and another month later to see if their positions have changed on any of those axes. And then you can identify the trajectory. They may be going from a left corner of the room towards a right corner of the room, or a right corner to the left corner. So may I ask you, where do you stand on those three issues? Where do you stand on nationalism? I can see that you've said something about nationalism in the comments there. I think you wrote this one. You said imperialist fascism is a bad force, or else it can be channeled to healthy nationalism. So I suppose that puts you on the nationalist side of the spectrum of nationalist versus internationalist. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you're on the nationalist side there. And on the public versus private ownership, where are you? Where do you stand? On the public side or the private side?
Private, but leaning to some public property.
So you're closer to center
Yeah.
on the public-private, but you're
Also
you're
in the nationalism. Also in the nationalism. I don't believe in fascism. For some, you see,
Well, fascism is a cartel, yeah.
But it is a hyper nationalism.
Yes, it is. That's exactly right. Fascism is the defining. I mean, even the word fascista, it comes from a word meaning cartel, and so the defining characteristic of fascism is really nationalism, because a nation can be a huge nation, or it can just be a small group of three people, for example, who have identified themselves as a particular cartel, a tribalism, and they are only fighting for each other's, interests. That is cartelism, and that is the beginning of fascism. So, the defining characteristic of fascism is nationalism. And then where are you on the authoritarian versus libertarian or liberal legal side?
Optimal minimal state. Optimal minimal state, not minimal state, but state has some power, but not too much and not
too much
minimal.
So would you say, with regards to center, would you be on the liberal side or the authoritarian side of center?
Yeah, it is. Again, if you break down this question you are asking, there is again many axes. In some axes, I can be left-leaning. Left-leaning. No.
Let me explain. Because, for example, if you choose another axis versus like education, maximum education versus minimum education, you might think that that's a possible axis. But when you actually break it down, you'll realize that is simply another aspect of the legal axis of law versus
Okay. The word I was looking for was aspect or sub-axis. Okay, so I can be left-leaning in some sub-axes and right in some of them. So I don't know where I shall.
Or you like in the general channel
myself.
of lawfulness versus antinomian lawlessness. There is the education sub channel inside of that axis, and you're more towards greater education than less education, but you're in favor of perhaps slightly less law than authoritarian side, maybe on the liberal side of the center, not to the anarchist side, not to the anarchist extreme, but just the liberal side of center. But you do believe in more education, probably. I can tell you're an educated man.
Sort of.
Yeah. All right. So the problem is that when we have these sub-channel dissonance, where you would like to be more education but less law, then that's where all the problems of society comes about. When people haven't understood that these sub-channels, one, you can't push forward one without the other, and you can't have less of one without the other. You can't have more education without people deciding what is education, without people having a ministry of education, without people deciding what is a fact and what is not a fact. You need to have a rigorous, either a scientific approach to it or a non-scientific approach to it. So the more scientific you are, you will be pushing over into the authoritarian side, because then you need the institutions to have to be legally recognized as educational institutions, which have been accredited by some specific body, which has got checks and balances in it. And so you get more and more and more legalism, the more education you want. So you must be on the authoritarian side of center in order to have better education. You can't say, no, we're going to have better education, but we're not going to have any legalization, because then there'll be no accreditation, then there'll be no trust. It just becomes a free-for-all. It becomes anarchy. So it might seem like
minimal optimal.
So that means you have to make it. You have to think about it very carefully. You say minimal optimal. On which side of center with regards to authoritarian versus libertarian are you? Are you on the side which demands accreditation for universities and serious academic rigor in regarding education? Or are you on the side of
education? On education, I am authoritarian, leaning authoritarian. On education, but maybe on art, on culture, on public identity, I may be leaning right. The way you conceptualize, the way you model it, okay, you think it is a one-to-one projection of the political space to the three-dimensional thing that you are modeling. But in fact, it is more intricate and more complicated. It is just a rule of thumb.
Creativity. Would you say that the Renaissance art, the classical period art, the Baroque art, that all of this is rubbish? That there is no creativity in any of that? Would you say that all of the music, art, and poetry is rubbish? All of the Renaissance period art, poetry, music was rubbish. All of the classical period art, music, poetry is rubbish. Would you say that?
No, but it wasn't liberal. It wasn't liberal.
It wasn't liberal, but it was totally creative. You're not realizing that there are fundamental channels here, which other things are just sub-channels inside. Creativity has nothing to do with it. Creativity doesn't even fit into the spectrum. It's not a political issue. Creativity can be, you can be totally creative. This is what the problem is. You can be totally creative in the public ownership side, and you can be totally creative in the private ownership side. You can be totally creative in the legalistic side, and you can be totally creative in the anarchistic side. It's got nothing to do with education or nationalism. It's simply a way of handling the world which has been given to you. So Baroque period music was extremely regimented. Classical period music was extremely regimented, and yet there was so much creativity. Because creativity...
You are simplifying it. There was creativity in a band.
It is simple. It is a simple thing. I'm not simplifying it. It is simple. Creativity is
disputable. That is disputable.
No, it's not disputable. It's not a matter of your truth, my truth, his truth, her truth. There are facts. There are facts,
No,
and if we
there
have,
are,
this is the problem.
but there are.
What's
But
happened what's
we
happened
are
in the post?
in the
In the
act of
post, please
in
let
the
me speak.
act of grasping the facts.
Let me,
Okay, we
let
have
me
a
speak for a little.
faculty.
Don't interrupt me, please. Let me get this point across. In the
So,
postmodernist era, we are under the impression that you could have your truth, I could have my truth, somebody else can have their own truth, and that there is no real thing as objectively verifiable truth. And that is why we've got to the point where we even have people like Donald Trump saying alternative facts. Well, there are not alternative facts. There is not your truth and my truth, because truth is fact, and there is nothing else which is true except fact, and fact is only fact if it is objectively verifiable. Therefore, if two people are in dispute over the fact, it can only mean one of two things. One of the people is either ignorant concerning the details which are necessary to know concerning that fact, or two, that the thing in discussion is not a fact. It's a matter of knowledge, one way or another. Either one of the people in the discussion hasn't got enough knowledge, or the topic, which is considered to be a fact itself, is not a fact. And that's where the dispute comes from. There are certain things which are indisputably factual. The fact that we are talking to each other is an indisputable fact. This is objectifiable, and nobody's going to dispute that. That is a real thing which is happening. The way that we are communicating with each other is through the internet. This is indisputable. Nobody can dispute that. So what we should always try to do, what we should always try to do is focus only on the facts which are
your
indisputable.
analogy
Sorry, what are you
breaks.
trying to say?
When there's complication, okay, in
Seems every
complex
time
facts.
you're speaking, every time I'm quiet, you're quiet. There's probably a delay on the line here. So let's focus only on the things which are indisputable, okay? Creativity has nothing to do with whether you are an anarchist or a legalist. Creativity is within the channel, okay? There's no shutdown or lockdown on creativity, even in the most oppressive authoritarian regime. Somebody is still designing something. For example, in Islamic art, you're not allowed to draw a picture. You're only allowed to write. Oh, okay then. So some creative person comes along and writes a picture of a lion, or writes a picture of a sword. You see what I mean?
May
Even
I
in
say
oppressive.
something? Make
Yes,
the
yes,
point, then ask me. Make the point, then ask me.
So my point here is that you've confused creativity with the spectrum. The spectrum has got nothing to do with creativity.
Okay, but if you measure the creativity of a nation, okay, you see that it is channeled, it is band, it is limited to a bandwidth of creativity. You can't call it creativity is orthogonal to the authoritarian and liberalist axis, but you are confusing the overall creativity to a bandwidth creativity. If those societies were
No, because
liberal,
creativity can be anywhere in the spectrum. Creative people could be anywhere in the spectrum.
No, it is forced to a channel of creativity. There is a filter.
You can be forced, but you could be a total anarchist. You could be under a Stalinist regime, or you could be under Nazi regime. You could be under an Islamist regime, in which case you're very restricted, but you can still be creative. Or you might be a total anarchist and still be totally creative.
Okay, the quality of creativity in the anarchists, okay, clearly is different than the quality of creativity in an authoritarian system.
I don't believe so. I think that the creativity, somebody who is able to be creative with restriction, is more creative than somebody who can be creative without restriction. Because everybody without restriction can just splash some paint on a page and say that's art. A monkey can do that. Any monkey can do that. And if you, what we're allowed to say in an anarchistic system where there's no law is you're allowed to say, yes, that's beautiful art, rather than saying that rather than criticizing that and saying, I'm sorry, no, that's not good enough. You've got to try harder than that. So that when we say to somebody, your expression of your art is really rather bestial or fauvish, then you need to try harder. You need to come out of that, unless you're trying to imitate the fauve system, in which case, congratulations, well done. It's not to my taste. But the person who finds an ability to express themselves under a strictly authoritarian regime has a better creativity, because anybody can create art under anarchism, but very few people manage to create art under a strictly authoritarian regime. Why is that? Because only the most creative people are able to find a way. So you can find true creativity only under a fully authoritarian system, whereas under an anarchistic system, you wouldn't be able to identify who has true creativity and who is just playing games. You wouldn't be able to identify, because there's no law to identify. There's no rule. There's no standard. There's no measure.
No, not state laws. There are private communities which they have own norms. Their own
But now
norms.
you're talking about libertarianism, which is basically the same as creating little nations. Libertarianism is little communities coming together and say, these are our rules. As soon as you have a community come together, it's become authoritarian because it's defined rules. That's not true anarchy. That's not true
No,
lawlessness.
okay. So it is a spectrum, okay, and you get different expression of creativity in there, and it was very peculiarizing me when you said that in an authoritarian regime you get the true creativity. You are alienating many people who would have been productive, but because they don't like the agenda that is
Productive,
being pushed by the
I'm
state.
just
Okay?
I'm not taking the side of full authoritarianism. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just playing devil's advocate for the truth. Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I'm
Okay.
trying to do right now. Okay.
No, but you are motivated.
But the what I'm trying to say is you're saying people would be more productive in a less authoritarian society. I would say maybe, but then there's more junk which is being produced in a lawless society, and that's a fact. So the problem is, if you are on the let me describe a situation where do you think the world is right now in regards to the spectrum of authoritarian versus liberal on one side, nationalist versus internationalist on the other side, and private ownership versus public ownership on the other side. Where is the world going right now? What trajectory are we going to? We're
There are
going
many.
towards one corner of the room. We're going towards one corner of the room. We're going towards the liberal, that's the totally lawless, private ownership, nationalist side of the room. That's one corner of the room. There are 8 corners in this room, and we are going towards that corner. Out of 8 choices, and the world is being pushed towards this trajectory. Why? Because we don't have an objective view of the picture. In fact, people are being prevented from seeing or understanding the shape of the box that we are in. We are
That
in a
is the
box.
freedom. That is the freedom. You
It's
are.
not freedom. What it is because the people, if you want, for example, like take Twitter, for example. Do you have a Twitter account?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the Twitter account, you have a feed. You go on and it's got recommended for you. You've got your news feed coming up to you right now. You can see different things which are being tweeted. In order to appear in your feed, guaranteed every day, I would have to pay $5,000 every day. And then I could be guaranteed that everything I tweet is going to come into your feed every day. $5,000 a day. $5,000 a day is $10,000 every 2 days. $100,000 every 20 days. $1 million every 200 days. And I don't have to pay for 300 days. As long as I'm there every second day, you'll see what I want you to see. But I need to pay $1 million a year, basically, to get you to see what I want you to see. And I have to do that over 10 years to direct the society. That means I need $10 million to be able to direct the society. And if I don't have $10 million, I can't direct the society. Society is being directed towards the nationalist, libertarian, private ownership corner of the political spectrum. Out of 8 corners is going to that direction, because people who've got $10 million, certain people who've got $10 million to waste, maybe more, maybe 20, maybe 30, are pumping things into your Twitter feed every day. Twitter is an example. Facebook is another example. YouTube is another example. The algorithms are not free.
There's no coercion here.
There is total
There's
coercion.
no coercion here.
All I need to do is pay $5,000 a day.
One can uninstall them.
How many followers do you have on YouTube here? How many subscribers do you have?
I'm not
Just
active
you
here.
know. Sorry, you're not active.
I'm not
Okay.
active here.
Once you get over 1,000 subscribers, once you have more than 1,000 minutes on your videos, okay, and the people have been watching your videos for more than 1,000 hours, okay, then people will start contacting you, offering you services to push your channel further. I know what I'm talking about. I got 2,250 subscribers here. I don't know how many thousands and thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours of videos have been watched on my channel. And I know because I get contacted by people all the time offering me their services. All I need to become a YouTube hit is to pay. I've been across the internet. A big super international star is to pay $5,000 a day. And then everybody will be lapping up everything I've got to say. I'll be the #1 hit in everybody's channel. It's the same with Twitter. It's the same with Facebook. It's the same with Instagram. It's the same with all of them. In
Then
other
it would be
words,
saturated. If it was that easy, it would be saturated.
it is that easy because it's the fact of the matter. Not everybody's got $10 million to waste on a frivolous activity like that. But if you are a multimillionaire, I mean, or more likely a billionaire, because if you only got $100 million, you're not going to waste $10 million on this kind of campaign. If you've got $1 billion, you might waste 10 million. If you've got $10 billion, then yes, you are going to waste 10 million. It's nothing to you. It's kapeki. It's pennies, right?
Consider
So we're
this,
looking
excuse
at
me.
people who've got $10 billion are the ones who are controlling your minds.
No. They are suggesting if you are a responsible citizen, you would reject them. Okay? They
You
cannot
can't reject them. As soon
install
as you signed
something
up
in
to
your
one of these
brain.
things, no, as soon as you signed up to one of these things, you are getting pumped by that person's political agenda. And if they want you to be a libertarian, nationalist, private ownership, which is where you think you are, okay, then that's what you're going to become. You don't have freedom of this because very fundamentally, I'm sorry to say, it sounds like insulting to the human intelligence, but we are not that intelligent. Whatever we see all the time is
You
what we're going
think
to
you
go with.
are out of this. You think you are out if you are conceptualizing it like this, which is wrong. Okay? You
Why is
are
it wrong?
a puppet
No,
of
you just
something else.
you said it's
You,
wrong. Why is it wrong?
yeah, because one has a cognitive ability to analyze things, to go through them, to
Not if the
reach to
information
conclusion,
being presented to you as
to
fact is not
reject the
factual.
propaganda.
Okay, what is the you sound like you've maybe got an Iranian or Azeri accent here. It's interesting
Very
to
nice, very nice. Yeah, good.
yes, very good. And I guess you're not actually in Iran or Azerbaijan, but you because your English is very good, and I don't think you'd be speaking about nationalism. I mean, maybe you're more towards the Iranian than the Azeri. I don't
Yeah,
know what
I am Zarathustra's fan. I am
You're
Zarathustra's fan, and
Zarathustra.
a slayer of Abrahamic
Is
religion.
that what the symbol is that I'm looking at? Is this a
No, it is
Zarathustra?
some. I like eight. I like eight symbolism,
Ah,
opposed to six. Your sixes.
okay, all right then. So now with regards to this, you depending on the country that you're living in, you might know the accrediting body for one of the major universities in your country. If you have looked into this, could you name me without googling it right now from the top of your head? Could you name me one of those accrediting bodies without googling it?
I don't get what is accrediting body. What you mean?
Any university or education institution is only as good as the qualifications you get from that institution is only as good as the accrediting body legally recognized by the country which awards that qualification. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
No, it
For
is the
example,
first time I hear this.
okay, and this is a problem. So it's the first time you've heard this, and this is a problem because you say we have our cognitive, our own intelligence to be able to investigate and learn anything, and yet you don't know this fundamental matter. This is a problem. It's not uncommon, just so you know. Most people don't realize this. Most people don't realize
Cognitive
this.
ability is not education. See,
It doesn't matter. The
one
ability
thing-
to rationally criticize and analyze information which is coming from you means that you need to ask who says so. Who says that this is a fact? And if you don't know about accrediting bodies, then you do not know who says so, unless it is a direct personal experience of your own that you're having, for example, this conversation with me. Then you know that this is real because we are having this conversation, and you know that I'm not inside of your head, right? Okay, so we have a real factual experience which you yourself can verify that this is true. On the other hand, when information is fed to us, even from a university, okay, published by a university journal, that information is only as good as the qualification of the person who is issuing this information. And that qualification is only as good as the accrediting body who is awarding that person the qualification. And that accrediting body is only as good as the government of the country which is giving that body its accreditation, its ability to
I don't see it.
accredit.
I don't see it this way.
But it doesn't matter whether you see it that way or not. That is the fact. I haven't told you a porky pie. So you can go and research this and you'll understand yourself. From now on, I hope, you'll go off the internet and say, let me work out about accrediting bodies. And you'll realize how fragile the entire system is. It's a scam.
I let them walk me through their reasoning. I don't know why you.
Okay, that's good. That's
like
good.
slavery.
That's good. No, that's good. If you allow them to walk you through the reasoning, that's very good. But at a certain point, you have to come down to some facts in order to be able to make a decision about their reasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we get the problems. Unless it's a direct personal experience of your own, you're going to have to look into some kind of educational source to get information on that matter. For example, let's take an example.
And cross validations, you see.
Well, let's take some genetic research. Have you heard about the idea that you can do a DNA test and they can identify your ethnic origins from your ancestry in something called autosomal DNA? Do you know about this?
Yeah.
Okay. And they will say, for example, they'll give you a DNA test and they'll say, you're 20% Turkish, you're 30% Kurdish, you're 15% Persian, you're 4% Jewish, etc., etc. Okay? Would you believe it? It's been tested by a scientific company. Would you believe it?
I can opt for another company, for example.
You opt for another company, they give you almost the same results. You opt for another company, they give you slightly different results again.
Then I formulate my belief as I am 90% sure that they are not machination, doing some trickstery there. I'm 90% sure of this. But
you're 90% sure that what
you have to trust some things in life.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm trying to say. In order to formulate our opinions, we have to trust something. So you'll be 90% sure that there's some kind of truth in this information which is being fed to you. Now, I'm trying to take you to a deeper level.
Not fed to you, presented to me. Why you keep using derogatory?
I'm not being derogatory. If you are hurt by if you're personally hurt by the suggestion that you cannot be taken to a deeper level by some stranger that you just met on the internet, that's not derogatory. That is your own ego which is hurt. It's got nothing to do with me. That's your own problem, not my problem.
I'm suggesting that your mental state, that you keep formalizing the way that it is darkish. And
no, I'm not saying anything's dark. No. What you're suggesting is I'm trying to say that there's a conspiracy out there. No, I'm going to take you to a deeper level of fact so you can understand the problem with genetic ancestry. These companies. It's not too difficult. It's not too difficult. In order to know about the genetic makeup of an ethnic group, right? In order to say you are, for example, 4% Jewish, if I do a DNA test and say you've got 4% Ashkenazi DNA, right? Yeah, but in order to say that about you, I would have to have I would have to have absolute certain fact and truth concerning what is Ashkenazi DNA. Otherwise, I would not be able to identify Ashkenazi DNA inside of you. Now, how do I arrive at my certainty of such a thing called Ashkenazi DNA? How do I arrive at that? Tell me.
Maybe some samples that we are
From who?
sure that they are Ashkenazi, and
How can I be
then
sure?
we
Tell
find
me.
a difference.
That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to get, is certainty. How can I have certainty that the sample of DNA I have is Ashkenazi?
Different sources of information, and this we
Whoa, whoa,
cross
whoa, whoa,
check
whoa, whoa.
them. Then we
A
put
genetic sample is not
hypotheses,
coming. A genetic sample,
probabilistic
when you're talking about
hypotheses that.
listen, be realistic.
Sorry.
A genetic sample, when we're talking about different sources of information, is not different sources of information. A genetic sample, it would be different sources from different people that I have sampled. How can I be certain that the people that I'm sampling are indeed Ashkenazi and not just pretending, not just actors?
Their genealogy.
Genealogy can be forged. Genealogy can be forged. People can actually forge a document. Genealogy is a personal, private, family affair, and is not a matter of public knowledge.
Yeah.
How do I
Then we
know
have
that the person I'm
hypotheses.
sampling? It's a very simple question. How do I know
then
the
we
person
get-
I'm sampling is not an actor? How do I know that the person I'm sampling hasn't forged their genealogy? How do I know?
Okay, we get hypotheses about what Ashkenazi Jew is. We have some working hypotheses.
Tell me.
Then
Tell
we
me.
go into the world and gather more information. Then something consistent.
No. You're avoiding the fact.
emerges.
You're avoiding. No, I'm trying to bring you down to some solid facts, some solid ground here. Solid ground. You don't go into the world and try and read some books. You do not do that. That may be the way that Muslim education is, but that's not the way fact and truth is. It doesn't work on that. Okay, we try to break out of our enculturation of Christian education, Jewish education, Muslim education, Buddhist education, whatever education we've had, to try and understand what true fact is. And the only thing which is true fact is something which you know from direct personal experience is true. But when it comes to identifying an ethnic group, you've got a person over there who says that they belong to that ethnic group. Okay, they produce their genealogy saying, here's my genealogy, I belong to this ethnic group, and you might be convinced that they are. Now, in genetic testing, this is the problem. We got totally circular. There's no truth in it. It's a total scam. In genetic testing, we would test that person today. For example, you might say that you are perfect. I don't use Zoroastrian. Maybe you're going to say you're Farsi and you have perfect Zoroastrian ancestry and you're 100% totally Zoroastrian for the last 4,000 years or something, or 3,000 years. Okay. And then they test you and you produce your Zoroastrian documentation from your Zoroastrian culture. And you say, here's my documentation. They test you and say, no, you're not Zoroastrian. You're part Punjabi. You're part Chinese. You're part Egyptian. You're part Spanish. And you could say, but no, I'm a Zoroastrian Farsi. My genealogy is Farsi. And they're going to say, ha, ha, ha. People are going to laugh at you and say, ha, ha, ha. No, you're not. You're a mixture of all these people and you didn't even know it. And you're going to go away thinking to yourself, wow, I thought that I was pure Farsi, and it turns out I'm a bit Spanish, I'm a bit Egyptian, I'm a bit Punjabi, I'm a bit Chinese. You didn't even realize it, okay? Why should you accept this gene? How did they know that you were a bit Spanish, you're a bit Chinese, you're a bit... How did they know this?
Science. That's science. It is
No,
probability.
you're not getting to the bottom of the science. I'm trying to force you to think outside of the box.
I know. What are you? I'm a deep thinker. I know what you're getting at, but I'm saying there is solution out of this.
No, there
thing
isn't,
that you are
because
presenting.
there is no way. If you were going to get your first sample, think about it. If I want to get a sample of pure Farsi DNA, then maybe I would approach people who say that they're Zoroastrians. And I know what I'm talking about because I was in one of the original study groups in 2007. Okay, I really know what I'm talking about here. Okay, they simply put out through the synagogues, through whatever it is they're looking for, they simply put out for volunteers who say that they belong to a particular group, to ask them, would you give a genetic sample for them to build up the study? So you do. And so does 100 other people who have mental illnesses and all believe that they are also of the same group that you are. Today.
It is a
but maybe next week they change their mind because they're mental. And you know what?
Not the primary
Not
one.
a single one. This is preliminary studies. Not a single one of those people is... There's no kind of qualitative data taken concerning that population except Are you, the question, simple question, do you consider yourself to be Farsi? Yes. Okay. So I could literally say myself, yes, I'm Farsi, test me. And then what result are they going to get? And then the secondary data is coming the same. People are not telling truth. If you get a result, and there are companies out there which are saying this person is 100% Ashkenazi, how can that possibly be true? It cannot possibly be true, because in order to get a sample, a general sample, you'd have to test millions of people who say that they are Ashkenazi, and gradually you'll get an idea of a vague picture that there is some commonality between them, and there'll be a lot of other people who are on the peripheries because they are just crazy people who say that they're Ashkenazi. But you're only going to get a vague idea of what autosomal Ashkenazi DNA might be like if you manage to test huge numbers of Ashkenazim, millions of them. By the way, you're not likely to get a DNA test from the pure Ashkenazim because they belong to such religious communities that they're not going to give you a DNA sample.
I think there are papers, scientific papers, discussing this
That's
issue.
what we're trying to talk about, Gapa, here.
Okay,
The
okay,
scientific papers are not trustworthy because they haven't been peer-reviewed sufficiently. They've only been peer-reviewed by people who are accredited by organizations which are actually government-controlled. In the end of the day,
there are many of them. There are
trust
Chinese
all
ones. There are Chinese papers. They are different from different institutions. They are pointing to a general path.
You're under the illusion that all scientific research from every country in the world gets put into some wonderful vat of knowledge, which is where all scientific truth comes from, because if it wasn't true, it wouldn't correlate.
No.
Ideally,
there are
you
struggles,
would do that.
There are hypotheses, but you are denying our way.
I'm not. Your idea is correct, but you're fed by a fundamentalist socialist concept of education. Under the Soviet Union, what you're describing is true. That is how knowledge was discovered, because all of these different countries, whether it was Belarus or Lithuania, Latvia, Ukraine, Moldavia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, it didn't matter which country, the people would do their scientific research, and the scientific research would come to one general sort of body, which was an official body, to try and find the corroborative facts between all of this scientific research, and then that scientific institution would then issue the scientific facts which have been discovered. But in a free-for-all, in an anarchistic society where there is no one governing sort of body which is going to assess, which its job is to assess commonality between scientific research, it's a free-for-all. And the only thing which comes out being factually true are the things which can actually affect the reality of the planet. For example, we're talking through computers, which are built by engineers on real solid things. But genetic research has no real-world solid, I'm talking about genetic ancestry research, has no solid effect in the planet. Okay, what we do have, for example, ethnicity, doesn't have any real-world effect. It has no impact on the real world at all.
All you are saying that we have to be cautious about it. All you are saying,
we are super cautious about a lot of things. Yeah. A lot of things. Yeah. Anything cultural.
Not to deny a path to be moving forward. We have to just prune and self-correct and move forward.
But you cannot take you cannot take a hard science approach to a soft science subject. That's what I'm trying to say. But the problem is that with the world, most people don't seem to know that you can't do that. Because a hard science approach only works with hard science subjects which have real world practical applications.
Okay, nice. But one may say that soft science is only waiting for its phase to become hard.
No.
And these are steps
that's absolutely... If soft science will not make progress into hard science unless we go back to the way the society was in the beginning of the 20th century. It's not going to get back there, so we're never going to make progress. That's why certain things are never... Psychology is a soft science which could have become a hard science, but is not making any progress because we don't have the same cultural mentality to be able to try and find what is the fact. Instead, we have too much political correctness, which is affecting the soft subjects. Political correctness affects sociology, affects psychology, affects ethnology and genealogy. It affects all of these things which are called ologies. They're not even ologies. They are soft areas of cultural persuasion which are affected very easily by politics. And we're not got enough.
What you are describing is a force at play in the world, but is not the only force. But it's not the only force.
So we started off talking about this political spectrum, right? The more towards the liberal, nationalistic, private ownership corner of the room we go, the less trustworthy any fact becomes. Anything which is peddled to us as a fact becomes less and less trustworthy the more we get towards that corner of the political spectrum.
No, there is competition. And
the competition
like evolution.
And you're thinking about the free market economy, okay? That's the free market economy. It's not the same as capitalist private ownership. Free market means that there will always be competition. But on the private ownership corner of the spectrum, monopoly is more important than private ownership. More important than free market. Private ownership ultimately means one person should control all of it. It becomes a mirror image of the public ownership.
No, you can prevent
it's a kind of feudalism.
You can prevent, and this is the forefront of our.
You can't prevent it if you're going to just.
You have to do regulations for that.
But then you're not on the liberal court. Then you're not on the liberal side of the spectrum.
Not quite liberal. Not quite liberal, but liberal.
You can be minimal authoritarian, but you have to be on the slightly authoritarian side, and that means you need to penalize people when they are breaking the law. You can have laws. Okay, the difference between if you're in center of regards to liberal versus authoritarian. Okay, if you're in the center, you're undecided on whether you should penalize or not with regards to law. Okay, if you go onto the authoritarian side, it means yes, I believe in penalization. If you come onto the liberal side, you say, I don't think that penalization should be enforced. We should have laws, but we don't have to be so harsh about enforcing those laws. For example, marijuana should be illegal, but we don't really want to punish everybody who has a personal supply of marijuana. This is not authoritarian. This is in the center, okay, and it's saying that there should be a law about it. It's illegal, but we're not going to penalize anybody if they have it. So it's a law on paper. So you're now on the if you've gone from the center, you've crossed over into the liberal side. If you're in the center and you say no, we should definitely penalize people if they break a law, then you've crossed over into the authoritarian side. And only in the center means undecided. That's what literally being in the center means. Being in the center means undecided. I cannot decide one way or the other. That's what being in the center means. So to be in the center is to be an idiot. We cannot be idiots. We have to be somewhere around the center, at least on the slight penalization side or the no penalization side, for example, with regards to law. Likewise, also with private and public property. You can't be in the center because that means you're an idiot. You have to be on one side or the other. You have to be somewhere around the center. Likewise, also with nationalism
versus for center. You can be right on the. One can interpret being centered in this sense that you are, for example, for penalizing in marijuana issue, but you are not penalizing in some other aspect. Then overall you are in center because you take right instances in some issues and left instances.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. The definition between penalizing versus non-penalizing, okay, is what pushes you either on one side or the other side. Now, whether you're going to say, for example, this drug should be illegal and abortion should not be illegal, it's not a matter of where am I on the political spectrum now? What simply is what does your tribe believe? So you would be in the nationalistic, that would take you into a different dimension. Your tribe, your group of people, your nation believes this or that or the other. So you'll be more nationalistic if you want to be picking and choosing. Is they're going to be more nationalistic than another person. Everybody is going to be somewhere in the nationalistic spectrum, depending on what their tribe believes. Does your tribe believe that drugs is illegal? Does your tribe believe that abortion is illegal? If your tribe believes that both abortion and drugs are illegal, then that's one tribe. If your tribe says, no, abortion is illegal, but drugs are legal, that's a different tribe. It's a different nation. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a different nation.
Think different tribes, subnational identities are unified under a generic
well, that's
form
what
of
the channel is about. This channel is about trying to unify all the sub-tribes on the fundamental basis of Noahide laws, or the 7 laws of Noah. We say we would like to have the biggest tribe possible on the basis of these 7 laws, but we do recognize that if you don't follow one of these 7 laws, you're not in our tribe. But we do try to be as inclusive as possible. But we need to have some fundamental laws for our tribe, because otherwise we will never have a position. We will always be standing in the center with no opinion, completely mindless and unable to decide.
Yeah. Get this position. It may amuse you. We abide by the 7 laws you are talking about, but we refuse to identify as your tribe because we don't want to force the parapsychological forces that your tribe is trying to do. We obey by the 7 laws, and much more better than that. Do you get
Very
what
good.
I'm pointing at?
Yeah. Well, we
already
encompassed that
Abrahamic jargon. We don't want to be associated with any Abrahamic jargon.
Yeah, we already encompassed that possibility, and we say that you are not our enemy. You're not part of the tribe, but you're not our enemy, and we won't go to war against you. We are at peace with you. Because you are... I don't know if you've followed this channel much. How long have you been following this channel? Have you just discovered today? Or
sometimes I come in and out.
So I don't know if you've come across when I've been talking about saying that there are Hindu people who keep these laws, there are Zoroastrians who keep these laws, there are Buddhists who keep these laws, there are pagans who keep these laws, there are atheists who keep these laws, and none of them are practicing Noahide Judaism. What is our attitude towards them? I've talked about it many times. And our attitude towards them is that they are our friends. They might even hate us with regards to our maybe political agenda, but we don't go to war to them. We don't have any animosity towards them. They are our friends because, as far as we're concerned, they are protected by our God. They might say your God doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. We think that they are protected by our God. You see what I mean? We encompass them, even if they don't encompass us. We encompass them. They are under our umbrella, whether they like it or not. The only way they can escape from our umbrella is by saying, well, I'm going to break one of these 7 laws, and then they're outside of the umbrella. But if they're saying, no, I'm not going to break one of the 7 laws, but I don't want to be under your umbrella, they can scream as much as they like that they're not under our umbrella. They are under our umbrella until they break one of those laws.
You claim it to be so.
Yeah, of course.
Or you wish to be.
That's our position. It's a move in a chess game, if you like. It's a move in a chess game. It's an intellect. If you want, it's an intellectual game. We made the move and said, as long as you don't break these laws, you're under our umbrella. You can hate us and you can just deny it as much as you like, but we don't mind because we consider you safe. You can say that we're non-believers. You can say that we're idiots. You can say that we're all going to burn in hell. We will say back to you, you are safe. You are protected by our God. It's a clever intellectual move. No other religion on the planet ever made this intellectual move. Only we did. You didn't. Your religion didn't. Only Judaism did. That's because we thought about that possibility a long time ago. By the way, Jews and Persians used to get along very, very well with each other. I don't know if you know the history. It's only this modern state of Israel which has caused the problem.
No, these are not the Persians in the Iran now in the power. These are our enemies that have occupied Iran. There is nothing. The government is not Iranic. and they have claimed it. The leader of the revolution has told that we do we've got nothing about nationalism. Okay. Let me just to wrap things up.
The reason I said that, is because I know that Parsis who are subject to that media hate Jews as much as Iranian Shia do, and it's only because you're subject to the same media. Likewise, an Iranian Christian also hates Jews in the same way because they're subject to the same media. Please continue what you're going to say.
But I think Orthodox or Zoroastrian have some grudge towards any Abrahamic ideation of the world.
Tell me why. I'm interested to know why.
Because the idea of prophetship, first of all, and the idea that there are
Wasn't
commands
Zartosh himself a prophet?
No, some believe so, but many they think of regard him as a philosopher of morality. See that we are bound by our reason and our woman good thought and good deeds, good thought.
This is very similar to us. I mean, there's not much difference between us. The good thoughts and the good deeds are called mitzvot for us, and we try to do those things. It's not a religion of faith; it's a religion of action.
But there is a dictation from a supreme power, okay, that has grasped your people. That there is a parapsychological,
but you also believe in the light, don't you?
May say. Huh?
What do you say that there is a light? You follow the light, right? And who dictates what the light stands for?
Stands for?
Well, okay, so you're Zoroastrian. Sorry?
Prosperity. Things are good, which are expansive, beautiful.
So an expansionist fascist state would be good then, and it'd be prosperous. For Genghis Khan's empire, the biggest land empire the world has ever known, would have been good then, because it was prosperous.
No. Yeah, it becomes complicated because.
How does it become complicated? I'm interested.
Here, it is not logically sound. It is a practical solution for the conflict. I think that we have to be bound to our lands, okay? Persian Empire, Judaic, Arab people, okay? And they do not try to infiltrate on each other, okay?
Well, Persia was always expanding. The history of Persia is to expand.
Okay, it is a wrong thing to do. Okay.
But I think the Sassanians would disagree with you. I know they were heretic Persians, Zoroastrians. Is that correct? The Sassanians?
Yeah.
So how do you define which kind of?
I don't like them.
You don't like them. How do you define which kind of Persian is heretic and which kind of Persian is not heretic?
There can be many interpretations, and the main one is dependent on the power that someone pushes onto the world and molds the Persian identity as such. Okay.
So basically, if your group was in control instead of the Sassanian group, then the Sassanians would call you heretics, but you wouldn't say that you were heretics. But if they're in power, they are heretics only because you say so, but they wouldn't consider themselves heretics because they're in power.
Yeah, because the wisdom is our God. You see, Ahura
Mazda. That's right. The wisdom of So this is also the same for us as well. Chokhmah.
You
say that our God is not limited to this.
Brother, you receive commands from somewhere else, not your mind. Okay.
Our commands. If you want to know Judaism properly without projecting what you think Judaism is about, if you want to understand Judaism properly, first of all, we have to go back to. I'm critical. There are plenty of Jews out there going to get very angry about what I say, but this is the indisputable, verifiable fact. Okay. You want to go back in time to the earliest solid documented sources concerning Judaism as we know it, and those sources are Greek. All right? They're not even Hebrew. They're Greek sources. I'm not talking about scripture, okay? Scriptures exist before that, and they are certainly Semitic language sources, okay? But scripture is not our religion. Judaism is an interpretation, a system of interpreting scripture. And the earliest sources of that interpretation are Greek. And the earliest and continual community of Jews, which is preserving Judaism, is the Greek community called Romaniot. The Romaniot Jews are the ones. And whether you're a Yemeni Jew, or whether you're an Ethiopian Jew, or whether you're a Mizrahi Jew, a Persian Jew, or whether you're a Maghrebi Jew, like the North African Jew, whether you're a Sephardic Jew, whether you're an Ashkenazi Jew, all of you go back to one group of Jews, which are the Romaniot Greek-speaking Jews of the 1st century. And we don't have any example of Judaism earlier than that community. So if you want to know about Judaism, you've got to study that community first and then learn how the ideas from that community have evolved into, say, Yemeni Judaism or Mizrahi Judaism or Sephardi Judaism or Ashkenazi Judaism. But you have to start with that community first. Do you understand what I just said?
Yeah, I haven't heard about this, but I think the general vibe is there. But you go into the details. But at last, at the end of the day, okay, what Judaism represents, what is clear.
When you say it's
There's
clear,
not
from who? From
acrobatic.
what? From fact
I
or
mean
from
the paradigm
politics?
that it thinks, the paradigm that it thinks in. Okay, the Elohim.
What is the paradigm? What is the paradigm? I just told you the historical, factual paradigm. It's Greek. If you want to know what our God is according to Greek, you've got to read Philo. Philo is a wonderful source for information about the origins of Judaism. And Philo says that our God is logic.
What is the Old Testament? The many.
It's just scripture. As I said, Judaism is an interpretation of scripture. Scripture exists before Philo. There are plenty of examples of scripture, but scripture without Judaism is nothing. It's rubbish. It's meaningless. For example, scripture could tell you that you have
introduce the Philo. Have a video introducing Philo in the.
Oh, I don't have
future.
to. Everybody knows Philo. If they know Judaism, it's very, very. He's fundamental. But Judaism is a system of interpreting scripture, our history. We say that scripture is like a documentation of our history. Okay, this is Judaism. Scripture is a documentation of what we consider to be things which have happened in our past. Okay, and scripture is a documentation of what we say certain visionaries have seen about our future in the future, our future as well. We believe it is possible for people to have glimpses of the future. I don't think this is an irrational belief. There are many people from different religions all around the world who believe that such a thing is possible. Even predicting the weather, of how the weather is going to be tomorrow, is an example of predicting the future or seeing the future. So I think there's nothing unbelievable about the idea that some people can predict the future. Okay, and that's all it is.
I told you once.
Yeah.
Parapsychology and things precognition.
Parapsychology.
They are marginalized science, but they are there.
Interestingly enough, there's more evidence for certain things in parapsychology than there are in regular psychology. Parapsychology is more of a hard science than psychology. Ironically, even though parapsychology is marginalized, it's not a soft science. It's a rigorous hard science. I know. So we've got our scripture is just a record of our past and what we believe to be our past, and records of what certain visionaries believe will be our future. That's scripture. And on its own, it's meaningless. It has no meaning. Judaism is the idea that there is an underlying message in our history. From the ancient times to the far future, there is an underlying message which is religious in nature and spiritual in nature. And we require our rabbis to interpret our history for us in order to get an idea of what is the spiritual message behind our history. That's all. That's all it is. I don't think this is irrational. Isn't that basically the same as your religion?
No, the authority, the ultimate authority comes.
Logic.
I think it's something you project onto Judaism, and
No, no. This is
the,
Judaism. This is
you
what
see,
we
there's an
we do.
attempt to combine Plato and Moses into a philosophical system. Philo, what
No,
he has done.
Plato has got nothing. Well, we would say that Plato was influenced by Noahide Judaism, and so we might say he was a Noahide because our people are older than Greek. You know, Greeks are much younger than we are. It's irrational to presume that a society which predated the Greeks and was successful and has had influences around the world, it's irrational to presume that society didn't influence a single member of the Greek philosophers who were right next door, our neighbors, right next to us. It's irrational. It's also irrational to say that the Persians weren't influenced by us. That's also irrational. They're right next to us. Obviously, we had an influence on both.
Influencing has happened because
Sure, of course,
after
cross pollination, of course.
after we freed you from Babel, many of your scriptures has been written
Well, we
after
say
the yeah.
yes. What you're talking about is the Book of Chronicles, Chronicles 1 and Chronicles 2. It was written after, and that's basically like an entire history of Judaism. It was written by Ezra the scribe and other scribes like him after the return to Israel when Cyrus the Great gave us permission to go back to the land of Israel. And Koresh is considered by us to be a fantastic person, a Messiah. We call him a Messiah. He's actually given the title Messiah in our scripture, and he's a Noahide. He's a Noahide Messiah. And we want every non-Jew in the world to be like him. That's our religion. So you want to call us a sect of Zoroastrianism, you can if you want to. We believe that every non-Jew should be like him.
Okay, to wrap things up, I'm very thankful to you. I have learned many things from you and keep learning. But the point was the workers, the exploitation of the worker and things. I am not convinced by it. I think workers should be better in better circumstances, but not the fundamental change of the paradigm of capitalism.
I say the fact is recognizable in the if we look at the workers, if they were to stop working right now, if every employee who does not get an equal share of the profits of the company they are working for, those workers, if every single one of them was to stop working right now, the whole world would come to a total standstill, a complete standstill. And that is the fact which lets us realize that it is a serious issue that we should be focused on the rights of the workers to an equal share of the profits. That's all I'm saying.
It's not justice. If I work twice as much,
why isn't it justice? If you're,
let me have a hypothetical. If I work twice as much, okay, I'm entitled to get twice as you, right? So if one is putting his intellectual power, managemental power, okay, you can say that quality of labor is high. Okay. Then
I don't think that that's. I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of how many hours you work. Whether the person you can, because you could say that the person who's got the physical body,
value is determined by scarcity. Okay, you can have arms everywhere, but you don't have intelligence everywhere. Why is gold valuable? Because it's scarce.
I don't think you have physical. I don't think you have physical strength everywhere. I don't think everybody is built like an ox, you know.
It is abundant, more abundant than
intellectual capability.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the nutrition in the society. I think if you have a good health service and good nutrition, good food available, and good education concerning fitness, then you'll have more fit people in your society. And if you have a society which is focused on intellectual pursuit instead, you'll have more people in the society who are intellectual. I think it just depends on the culture. For example, Jews traditionally are weedy, wimpy people who are not very strong, and who spend all of our times with our noses in our books. Traditionally, that's how we were. That's one of the reasons why the Nazis hated us, because they considered us to be sort of genetically deficient in our physical abilities. And but we are famous for having a disproportionate number of intellectuals amongst us, because our culture is focused on intellectual pursuit rather than physical pursuit. Like, for example, the Greeks were obsessed with physical pursuit, and the number of philosophers you have in Greek society, you can count. It's less than 100. You can count them. Whereas the number of physically superb Olympic specimens from that culture, you couldn't count them. You don't even know who they are. They're countless. So it really depends on what your culture is focused on.
Yeah, but as long as working office jobs and pressing buttons, okay, there are many sources to press a button than to think complex thoughts. But your point can be legitimate somehow.
And if the people stop pushing those buttons,
Okay.
and
We're
if
gonna
people,
soon invent robots.
okay, it doesn't matter. If society is run by robots, that's fine. But if you're in a job today, right, and you were hired to do a particular work, and then tomorrow an AI is invented which takes away your job. Okay, most of your work, 50% of your job is taken over by the AI, and then they repurpose you to work on what the other 50% more.
Mm-hmm.
Why should you not get, since the work, now all you have to do is push a button and the AI does most of that work for you? Why doesn't your income either go up with the amount of efficiency that has been created by the AI, who has taken over most of your job, but you still have to push a button, okay, for the AI? One, either your income should go up, because the boss of the company, their income is going up, but yours is not. So why not? That should happen.
Who has set up the system for this productivity to
it
come
doesn't
into
matter.
existence?
It doesn't matter. You were hired on a contract to do. You were hired on a contract to do some job. They have taken it away from you. They've breached the contract, not you. You should get compensation. Or if you're still employed in that work and they say, right, we're going to repurpose we're going to put you onto more of this work, why shouldn't your work hours be reduced? Because you don't have to do as much work as you used to get the same result from your department. If they don't want to pay you more, okay, that's fine. Pay me the same amount of money, but make sure I'm doing less work during the week. Why not?
Okay,
Why do I have to do?
It may be so in the future. It may be so.
Well, I hope so, because if it's not so, then it'd be unfair.
So what you are doing to mediate the capitalism system, not to dismantle it. You see, it is justice. Capitalism is justice, whether you like it or you're not. Some people are stronger, better, they deserve more, and some not. And we have to just be socially mediating these dynamics, not to be anti-capitalist.
I think that each company, if there is a worker whose job is redundant or insufficient for that company, they can get rid of that worker. Everybody who's working inside of a company is necessary to the running of that company. You're basically saying some people are less important than others. If they were less important, then that company would have streamlined itself and passed on their job to other people in the company and got rid of them.
No, based on
that's not what happens.
Replaceability. You see, if I can replace a worker much more easier than replace.
This is the point. This is the point. I agree with you. Now we're talking about replaceability. If I can replace a worker more easily than another worker, then that worker's life is not as valuable as the other person's life. Yes, you're talking it like a capitalist. It doesn't matter whether you're replaceable or not. You should be regarded as equal. You are a living being.
Yeah. A bottom line of equality, but after that there is inequality. We do not deny the minimum wage or something like that. Okay, even if a citizen is not going to work at all, I am for that. I'm leaning left capitalism. I don't know if it is even a term, but it
No.
is socialism. You see, social democracies do these things like in a healthcare and things like that. Okay, they provide something, but they do not shatter the entire capitalistic system. They try to control it,
You know
make it
that
more social.
do you know?
See?
Do you think that Marx wanted to shatter the capitalistic system? Karl Marx?
I think based on what has happened after him and inspired by him, yes.
No, he didn't.
So
He was a scientist, and he simply described that the ultimate conclusion of capitalism everywhere is socialism. That's all he was. It doesn't matter whatever people are telling you. This is the fact of what the matter is, that communism will come about after capitalism has dominated the planet Earth.
it is a
Some
Marxist
people,
analysis. It is not a factual. It is a Marxist analysis.
it's a
He has
sociological,
concept
it's a sociological analysis, and it
based
is
on a
generally
paradigm.
showing.
Based on a paradigm.
Look, which is the strongest economy in the world right now? Everybody knows.
GDP per capita. I think we should not the volume
Well, why are you avoiding? Just the answer. Come
of
on,
GDP
everybody knows it.
important.
Everybody knows
China,
it.
you wanna
Yes,
China,
everybody
but
knows it. Everybody, thank you for confessing. Yes, everybody knows that. Everybody knows it's China. Now, how did they get there? Because they have harnessed capitalism under the communist model, because they recognize that Karl Marx is correct. That's all. It's sociologically and scientifically valid. And by the way, it looks like the last communist country in Europe is actually going to take over.
But if you look per capita, China is never to be. But if you look GDP per capita, China is 75. Okay, United States is 9. Okay, per cap because it has a bigger population. Okay, because of that the economy is big. Not that it is efficient
But
or
think about that.
something like that.
Think about proportionally, because China's population is over 1 billion and America's population is under 300 million. That's a significant difference there. Okay, you've got to think about what they are doing. Could the American system work with 1 billion people? No, it could not. It's falling apart at the seams right now. It could not work. So you've got to think about what's going to work with the biggest number of people. Like I said at the end, we're trying to look after and look out for the biggest number of people possible. That's what we're interested in. We want to embrace.
You want to segregate the earth. You want to segregate.
We just want to embrace the largest population of humans possible. And if those people,
you see, you have
out there,
imperialistic urges.
No, it's not imperialism, because as I said,
all the diseases that you
it's
get.
Not imperialism. You're missing
imperialism.
the point we talked about earlier when I said it doesn't matter if you hate us and you deny our God. It doesn't matter. We don't mind as long as you are keeping these 7 laws. The only way you can escape our embrace of love is if you want to break one of those 7 laws, and that's the only way you can escape.
No,
This is not
love. It is
imperialism.
selfishness.
This is called love.
It is not love. It is not love. You
It is love.
weaponize.
It's embrace. It's not an imperialist. No, it's not weaponizing anything. An imperialist wants to force you to behave in a particular way by forcing rules upon you. We don't. We have no interest.
You have
in
7
that.
laws. You have 7 laws.
We have no interest in forcing that upon people. We have no interest in that. We simply say that the people who are keeping those laws, they are not against us. No matter how much they might shout and scream that they are against us, we believe that they are not. Our God has told us that they are not against us. Leave them alone. So they get freedom.
The ambition of imperialism, okay, is
no, imperialism requires you to impose something upon other people. When the only thing we're imposing upon you is not, you don't even have to accept it. It's an open handshake. All we're doing is extending our hands to shake hands. That's all we're doing. You don't want to shake my hand. That's fine. That's totally fine. It doesn't stop me from extending my hand. If you are such a snowflake, not you, but some people, if some people are such snowflakes that they get offended by the fact that I'm extending my hand to shake with them, that's their own psychological problem. That's not me that's at fault here. That's that person who's ill.
I am saying the motivation behind your approach, okay, is to regard yourself, okay, as some hierarchy, that these people are Noahites among us. The motivation is not love; it is the
But
self-preservation and soft imperialism. You see,
what are you saying? Do you think that there's some kind of status here, different status between Jews and Noahites? Haven't you followed the channel? A Noahide, like Cyrus the Great, is higher level than any Jew.
yeah. I heard it from you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the problem? Where's the imperialism of saying that they are a Noahide who encourages a Jew to keep one mitzvah, like Cyrus the Great encouraged us to go back and worship God, one mitzvah, and they have achieved a higher level of holiness than any Jew anywhere could ever achieve. Ever.
It is a complex one. You see, intricate design in your beliefs, very clever designs.
It is very clever. It's an intellectual religion. It's very logical. We're not imposing anything on anybody, and we are just simply extending our love. But there is a misunderstanding in that what we call a Gentile mind. Okay, a Gentile mind doesn't understand a Jewish mind. A Gentile mind always tries to fit a Jewish mind inside of a Gentile model, and that's what they project on us, and it always comes off being very, very negative. What we see happening in the state of Israel is exactly the fulfillment of putting the Jew inside of a Gentile mind. Those people in the state of Israel, running the state of Israel, are exactly, Gentile minds inside of the Jewish milieu. Okay, but Judaism is not represented by the state of Israel. The state of Israel does not represent Jews or Judaism. It may like to say that, it does not. Judaism and Jews existed before the state of Israel. We will exist continually after the state of Israel has collapsed as well. We don't need a state. We don't need a land to exist. It is an intellectual condition. And if you try to think, well, what is it? You must think that your religion is the best. Yes, we do. Therefore, you must think that your people are the best. No, we don't. How can you possibly say that? Because a Christian thinks their religion is the best, Christianity is the best, and if you are a believer in Christianity, you're a Christian. And the same with a Muslim thinks their religion is the best, and if you believe in Islam, you're an Islamist or a Muslim, right? And each religion is like that. How can Judaism be different? We just are. You do not have to be a Jew to be a believer in Judaism. And you never have had to be a Jew to be a believer in Judaism. Never has. It's never been a prerequisite to be a Jew in order to believe in Judaism. Jews are nothing but the teachers of Judaism, if you like. It's like the priesthood of Judaism. Okay? But there's the congregation.
Does not seem to be truth, my friend.
So
The world view that you are putting forth, okay, it does not seem like truth. You see, Jews in this world, there is some Jews that have a special relationship with God, but not. It does not seem.
Well, we don't say that, do we? We say that a non-Jew who encourages a Jew to keep a mitzvah has a more special relationship with God. So you've misunderstood again. You're still projecting the Gentile view onto the Jews. You're not understanding a Jew.
It seems to me more like a delusional machinations in the root of all of these things.
And because of why is this? What's a delusional machination? What is exactly? What is the? Because I'm saying that
these habits that God wants these people to do some certain things, the absurd things that they don't taste like truth.
Such as?
You see these absurd laws or some
such absurd
peculiar things.
One.
You see, there are many of them, kosher and the different rituals. You see, the
kosher.
way they dress.
So the kosher laws only apply to Jews, not to Noahites.
Yeah. Okay.
So why are you saying we are imposing this
worldview? What is this worldview that we have a God that has some kind of laws for eating them, and then it comes in the Quran and it says no, because they misbehaved, we put upon them extra laws that you cannot eat from there. What is this God? What is this behavior?
Well, you see, now you're trying to understand Judaism through the Quran, and that's a big problem. You see, you've fundamentally got the wrong approach to Judaism. It's simple. to make it more easy for you to understand, if you have a politician in your country who is a married man having an affair, okay, a married man having a homosexual affair, do you think this would be across the news and it would be cause a problem, and maybe that politician might be asked to resign? In the world we live in right now, it happens, okay. But one of the people who voted for him is a married man who's having a homosexual affair. Does anybody care? Does anybody care?
Okay.
Does anybody care? Yes or no? Nobody cares, right?
Okay.
Who cares? Is it in the news? Is the media requiring that he resigns from his job and quits his job? Do you understand what I'm saying? Nobody cares what the people are doing. We only care what the exemplars are doing. Therefore, nobody cares about whether a Noahide is keeping kosher or not. All right? The only thing we care about is whether those people who are trying to promote their view, whether they are hypocrites or not. That's the important thing. Therefore, you have to have a higher level of behavior, a more
I think
legalistic way of behavior
God.
is demanded of those teachers than is demanded of the students.
It is mockery of God to believe that he has sent upon special laws for special people. It is outright
No, it's not special
mockery.
laws for special people. If you are in the public limelight on the stage, you have to behave in a different way to the people who are in the audience. That's all. That's not a mockery of God. That is the natural order. If God didn't like it that way, why did he create a world which allows it to be that way? If you are on the stage, you have to behave in a different way to the people in the audience.
Why does it count as a virtue? It is not
Who said it's a
conceivable
virtue?
through reason.
Who said it's a virtue? Who said it's a virtue?
Then why is God acting like that?
I don't know. Go and ask God. He's the one who allows it to exist like this.
Yeah.
He's
So
the one.
what is the probability? So if I am to hear, what is the probability that these things are just some jargons that have been echoed through eons and have formed
What is a
like
jargon?
this?
What is a jargon?
Something that it is like it serves to satisfy a psychological need without a basis in truth. For example,
Okay.
you keep kosher, okay, believing that you have some superiority or you are doing good.
No. We believe in something called the evil eye, okay? And this is something you can say is irrational, okay? If you want to criticize us, you can say our belief in the evil eye is irrational. We believe that if you don't behave in certain ways in public, under scrutiny of the public, that you will be subject to the evil eye because you are on the stage being watched by everyone. But if you are not on the stage, if you're in the audience, you will not be subject to the evil eye in the same way. So therefore, we try to do a lot of things to avoid the evil eye. Okay? That's basically it. Another way of saying it is the regard of contamination by death, what we call dibukim, that you get contaminated by death, okay? And this is going to bring the evil eye. The evil eye is going to be upon you if you get contaminated by death.
It is not.
So we do a lot of stuff.
All the ancient cultures all have about
have
death.
this
You see,
concept of contamination by death.
Yeah,
and it probably comes
and
from
you
very
can
simply.
trace it. You can trace it
It's very
through
simply
psychological
germs.
motivations.
No, I don't think it's psychological. I think it comes to germs and viruses and getting contaminated by bacteria. I think that's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter what it comes down to. It turned into a religion. The Jews recognize that this aspect of our religion is not for everybody. That's just our own inheritance.
It does not have anything to do with God. It is something that is
A tradition.
organically reasoned. Tradition,
Yeah, but if I was to talk to your ancestors 2,000 years ago, they would also believe in contamination by death because they didn't have germ theory, all right? So it's something which we inherited. But unlike other religions who say, and they have to impose their primitive germ theory solutions onto everybody when they convert. Judaism, Jews recognize that this is something only for Jews and that non-Jews are not required to do these strange things because it's only something that we have inherited and it's not part of our message. Whereas other religions would say, no, you have to believe the same things that we believe.
I think you should have said it is a commandment. You do not strive for the reason behind the things. I think it is the more khalis, what they say, I don't know, more pure way of looking at your religion, is that you are not concerned with why I have to obey God. But these are the commands and I am doing it because I am a slave of some entity.
No, it's because this is our inheritance. No, we consider this our inheritance. By the way, the Jews have been exiled from so many places. Often we don't have anything that we can take with us except our inheritance. For example, when my grandfather was he was sent from his home to a gulag, and he escaped from the gulag, and he came to the United Kingdom. He had nothing. He had absolutely not a single possession. The only thing he had is his tradition. Now, he didn't even pass that on because it was dangerous to do so. But when it was possible to pass it on, he passed it on. So this is the only thing that you have is your inheritance. You don't have even a shoe which you could say was your own. Okay. So you want to pass something on, so you pass on a story. Is it necessary for me to pass on that story to a Noahide? No, it's not necessary for me to pass that story on to a Noahide. Because it's not the point of my religion to pass on such things. That is simply my inheritance. It's my inheritance. It's not your inheritance. You don't need this. You won't value it if I give it to you. It's basically like trying to give something which is lapis lazuli. You know, this stone, this blue stone, lapis lazuli. It's worthless for many cultures around the world. But for some cultures, it's worth something. It's important. It's a precious stone.
It was entangled. It was entangled with truth. Okay, it didn't recognize a border. You see, if it was something real, okay, you would have advocated for everybody. Not this.
What are you saying? We are not a people who have a border. We had a border.
I mean identical borders, identity borders.
The identity border is if I have my inheritance, which is a story, and you love that story so much and you think that that story is yours as well, then you become part of my people. If you don't want that story, you're not part of my people, but we still love you if you keep these 7 laws. Why is this a problem? I don't see what this problem is. This is how you socialize. This is how you get along with people. This is why we can always outstretch the hand of friendship to anybody from any religion who is a decent person.
It is trickery because
the
motivation.
Motivation is what?
Yeah, it's not genuine.
What's the motivation?
It is self-supremacy. The self-supremacy.
What's the supremacy? What's the supremacy?
Yeah. How because you are defining the world, okay, defining the world around your tribe, okay, and you are saying that those who have those
so you're
characteristics.
going to get down to this snowflake position that you don't like the fact that somebody else likes you.
No,
that's a mental illness, friend.
I don't think the truth of the matter is that, because the Jewish people have many different, you see, what do they say, mutations of thought, okay, but they retain some fundamental form of fascism, you see, and you can delude it, you can dance around it, okay, but it is.
Are you trying to say that fundamentally your religion is? Are you trying to say that fundamentally your religion is fascism, and therefore you can't perceive that there might be a religion out there which isn't fascist? Is that what you're trying to say? Because we are not fascist. We don't impose anything on you.
It is hidden. It is hidden. You don't get it, and you dance around it. You, what you say? What was that? Rationalize.
So you believe in a conspiracy that we're hiding something which we don't let the non-Jews know about?
You don't even know it because you are brainwashed by that channel of system.
Really? Can you tell me? Help open up my eyes. What is it that I'm brainwashed by? Can you give me one example or something, please?
The same dynamic that you accuse other people, you see,
What
we
is the
had the
dynamic that I accuse
conversation
others of? What is the dynamic I accuse others of?
that they are being secretly fed up. You see, feeding someone. Okay, that same dynamic applies to you as well. And
Say that again, please. That they are being what? Feeding someone?
yeah, you conceptualize getting information from somewhere, okay, as being feeding something to someone.
Feeding information.
Yeah,
What
feeding.
about
Yeah.
would you say that the person who first understood electricity and explained it in a coherent way to another person, that person was feeding information?
No,
Because is that the same way?
there's
Because I
connotation of coercion in your
where's the
conceptualization
coercion? Where's the coercion?
because
If
it's
you're telling
feeding
somebody
truth.
about electricity and say, "Look, I've discovered electricity, and this is what I think I can do with it.
Yeah.
Look, I can prove, I can repeat the experiment, and I can show it to you anytime." Okay, how is this coercive?
No, I'm not saying it is coercive. The way you talked about
What is coercive?
implies
The way I talk about you, what you don't like. I think what you're trying to say is you don't like a logical argument because it feels coercive to you.
no.
No, what is it then? Because I don't understand what you're saying. Give me a solid example.
The way you look at the dynamic of other people, okay, and you
What is
think
that
that
way?
the position you have, for example, on the genealogy things, on the
Oh, so
capitalist
you
thing,
think that
okay?
my secular scientific analysis of genealogy has got something to do with Judaism?
No. I am saying that the same dynamic that you think that people outside of your group has with their authority of truth, okay, you got going on there on your little house with your masters there, the same way that the other people fail to see some truths that you think you are pointing at, okay,
I
the
don't
same dynamic
I
is
don't know
there.
exactly what it is you're trying to say when you say I'm in my little house with my masters there. Can you explain in more detail, please? Because I don't follow what it is you're saying. I want to understand what you're saying, but I don't understand. Can you
there are
help me
many
understand, please?
there are many forms of Judaism, right? And there are some
No,
brothers of
there are
you
not
that
many forms of Judaism. No,
they are for
Judaism,
Israel, against Israel, many different
this has
in
got nothing
every
to do with
religion.
Judaism. Judaism today is exactly the same as it was 1,000 years ago. And if there is a new form of Judaism around today, which wasn't there 1,000 years ago, then guess what? It's not Judaism, it's an innovation. It's been invented. It's a new creation. It's just stealing the name Judaism. It's false. It's peddling, it's a fraud. It's presenting itself as something which is not. For example, if Zoroastrianism today is exactly the same as it was 1,000 years ago, then that is Zoroastrianism. But if it's not, if it's different, then it's fraud. It's fake Zoroastrianism, pretending to be
So it's
something and laying
complex.
claim to
It's
something a thousand
complex.
years ago, laying claim to
It
something
can
a
be
thousand years ago,
something
using
in
the
the
name,
first place.
but
It
it's
can
not
be
real.
something in the first place. Then it can be diluted. Then it can be restored to something. It is much more complex. Something, because it is complex, you can say that there are many forms of something, because we don't know what is the original form and what it was intention, then what machinations come after
Well, we
that.
believe that something is the same if it's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And if it's different, then it's a different thing. We have this concept of something called consistency and constance. Constant and consistent. If it is constant and consistent, it's the same thing, Baruch Hashem. If it's not,
Yeah,
then it's fraud.
yeah, it can be corrupted in the source, you see, then it can become very consistent, but it is not the real thing. The thing I claim for the Zoroastrianism, the Sassanid Zoroastrianism, the corruption of Zoroaster's message. I then you think it is Sassanids, they have, it is consistent, but there has been machinations from the source to that point. And I'm not well versed in Judaism, but many people like you, okay, claim to be Jews, and they have many different. So, for example, do you know Amir
I don't
Tafati?
even have to claim
Amir,
it to be a Jew. All I have to do is claim that Judaism today, if it is exactly the same as Judaism 1,000 years ago, is Judaism. And if it's not, then it's not Judaism. It's a new thing which is using the name of Judaism. But you said something about me and my house and my masters, and I'm trying to understand what is exactly do you mean by that?
your information source, the people that you identify with, you think you are similar with them. Okay, you got something going on there.
I don't think there are any two Jews in the world who are similar with each other. I don't think that's even possible. But what we have is a tradition. What we have is a tradition. And we fight against each other about that tradition. We have the same tradition. At the end of the day, we can fight with each other over the book which is in front of us, and the book doesn't change. The book doesn't change. We can fight, but the book doesn't change.
The interpretations. Do you know Amir Tukhfati?
No.
Hello. No? Okay. I mean, there are many people.
I can hear you googling something. Send me the link if you want.
Branches of different branches, but you deny it. But you deny that there are branches, and you think it is a singular. But it is just an interpretation that you have.
No.
The others can do.
For example, if you want to talk about a non-Jew might say that Karaite Judaism is a branch of Judaism, for example. But if you go back 1,000 years, there was no such thing called Karaite Judaism. There never was thing called Yahadut HaKarai. It didn't exist. It didn't exist. Okay? There was Karayut that existed. Karaism, that's a different religion. That existed. Nowadays, it's called Karaite Judaism, but at that time, it wasn't. It was a different religion. Yahadut and Karayut are two different things. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? The thing which called itself Judaism 1,000 years ago is well defined.
If it was so, it wouldn't be what we are seeing now.
No, it's not that. It's just that everybody wants to cash in and claim that they have a right to defend themselves because they were killed in the Holocaust. So everybody wants to be part of that Holocaust. You know what? If you're a real Jew, the Holocaust didn't affect you. You continue the same as you were before the Holocaust, after the Holocaust. Nothing changes because it's consistent and constant. If after the Holocaust it affected you and you're going to change, well, guess what? You are a child of the Holocaust. You're not a child of Judaism. And that's a new religion which is coming out. So the state of Israel has done this because it is a child of the Holocaust. And I'm not saying that those people who created the state of Israel didn't have a completely understandable mental state. And I'm not saying I don't feel sorry for them. I'm not saying that I don't understand what they did. I understand what they did. I feel sorry for them. I understand their mental condition. It's a tragedy, but it's not Judaism.
I'm not knowledgeable here to oppose you or anything, but I'm sure that they have rationalizations for themselves.
Yeah,
for
the rationalization is actually
they have
emotion.
pages of explanation.
No, it's just emotion. It's very simple emotion. It's like this. My parents were Rabbi such and such and Rebetzin such and such. They were killed in the Holocaust. I survived. I have a right to defend myself. And they do. There's no Judaism in this. There's no Judaism in this. They have a right to defend themselves. They have a right to be upset. They have a right to be angry. They have the right to be angry at Christians for not coming to their aid more quickly. They have a right to be mentally ill because of trauma. They have a right to all of this. But it's not Judaism. It's completely defendable on an emotional level. But it's not Judaism. And it's got nothing to do with Judaism. Judaism hasn't changed from before the Holocaust and after the Holocaust. Judaism says, for example, that we are not allowed to go to the land of Israel and take control of it by force. That is a rule of Judaism. And yet the Jews
they fail to understand this simple thing that you are saying, okay? And the whole people, they fail to understand what you are just said in 10 seconds. You see, they have their own line of reasoning, their own gymnastics to explain away what you are saying. It is the meaning of the branches.
Sure, and you can understand it. They say, we have a right to defend ourselves. Where else shall we go? Everybody hated us. Everybody was killing us. We have to fight for ourselves, and we have to take our own land because nobody is going to look after us unless we can look after ourselves. That's their reasoning. It's very easy to understand. but it's not Judaism. It's very easy to understand them. You know, I'm an Israeli citizen as well. I have an Israeli passport. I went to Israel. I tried to settle there. Didn't work out. Funny enough, it was COVID-19 which prevented me from staying there. I was trapped outside of Israel during COVID-19. But I've lived there. I've lived amongst the people. I understand the mentality. I understand the whole thing. But it's not Judaism. It wasn't what I thought it would be when I went to Israel. It didn't turn out to be anything to do with Judaism. It's a new creation.
It prohibits establishing Israel, or it does
Judaism,
not command.
Judaism actively prohibits you as Jews from going up en masse to take control of the land.
So why they don't understand this?
No, they don't believe in Judaism because their parents were killed for Judaism, and why should they believe in Judaism?
There is so far you can go with lies. If it is outright stated like that, okay, we have some Jews that are opposing Israel, but I thought that they have interpretative answers for that, not just based on emotion.
No, these things are irrelevant to them. Look, you have to understand, you're a child, like 8 years old in the Holocaust, okay? You're a child, and you're 8 years old. You have survived the Holocaust. You're old enough to know exactly why your parents were killed. Both your parents, all your family were killed for Judaism. Your parents were Torah observant Jews. Your father had a black hat. He had peyot and tzitzit and everything like that. Your mother was also a Rebbetzin. She was Torah observant. And all your family were killed. And you survived. And you were forced in the camps. You were subject in the death camps to, after you were separated from your parents, you were subject to pedophilic abuse by other Jews in the Holocaust, because believe it or not, when you're a criminal in a situation, not all Jews are saints. There are pedophiles and thieves and sexual abusers and child abusers amongst us, just like every other nation in the world. Every nation has got its bad people, and you're in the death camp with such people abusing you. You escape, you come out, and you join a group of a resistance group, for example, the Bielski partisans in Belarusia. And they train you to learn how to use a gun. And you're very, very happy to use that gun to shoot a German, for example. And they tell you everybody's against us. Do you think you're going to have a love of Judaism? You are a Jew, but do you think you're going to love Judaism? Or are you going to be afraid of Judaism? Because Judaism is the thing which caused your whole family to be killed. And if you're 15 years old, do you think you know everything about Judaism? If that happened when you're 15? I think I've lost you. Are you there?
No, I'm here, but I don't know quite much on this matter.
Let me share this.
So
I'm going to share this on the screen for you so you can see what I'm talking about, because I think it's not clear. This is the fundamental principle. It's just from Wikipedia. You can do your deep dive after this, but this is the fundamental thing here. It's called the Three Oaths in Judaism, and it's the foundation of why it's impossible for Jews to establish the state of Israel. Okay, you're not allowed to do it. It's prohibited. It's called the Three Oaths. Okay. So it's a fundamental point of Judaism. Yeah, it's confusing, right? You say, well,
away.
Of course, they can explain it away. They explain it away left, right, and center. That argument. You see this argument at the top. This article relies excessively on references from primary sources. You know why that's put on? You won't find that on many articles on Wikipedia which use primary sources. They're very, very keen to use primary sources. But this one has this little disclaimer on top because it uses primary sources. Do you know why? Because some Jews are very angry that this thing should be, Zionists are very angry that this thing should be on Wikipedia, so they try to undermine it the only way they possibly can by putting on this little disclaimer at the top of the screen. But the fact of the matter is, this is primary source information. This is Judaism. I think that maybe I surprised you, yes?
It can be selectively providing truth. See? I'm not. I said I'm not knowledgeable on this matter, so I cannot evaluate
Well,
what's going
the
on.
fact of the matter is, we are not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to go up onto to the land and take it by force. We're not going to go out en masse. We're not allowed to have a revolution against those people who are ruling over us, etc. Blah blah blah. We have a lot of things which we are prohibited from doing.
After
And
the second
basically,
temple,
establishing a state of Israel by force is one of the things which is prohibited to us. If you want to
so
know
this,
what, if you want to know
after the
what,
second temple,
yeah, that's right. After the second, this is the reason why we could go back after Babylon is because Cyrus the Great sent us back. He was the ruler of the land, and he gave that land to us. Even at that time, it was prohibited for us to go and take the land. It had to be given to us.
so regard Zionists as Cyrus, as modern Cyrus.
How
Regard
can they be Cyrus?
Zionists.
They're Jews, aren't they? As Cyrus must be a non-Jew. Must be a Noahide.
Consider them heretics, Jewish
Okay, they are heretics.
that are playing the Cyrus's role for the
Okay,
prosperity of
they are
Jews.
heretics, but a heretic is not allowed to do this. We have this system that you have righteous Jews and you have lost Jews. Okay, a righteous Jew is not allowed to do this. A lost Jew can only be saved by a Noahide. A lost Jew, a heretic Jew, cannot behave like a Noahide until they are saved by a Noahide.
Okay. So Zionists, consider Zionists, the lost Jews playing Cyrus.
No. It works like this. We have Abraham's children are Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac's children are Jacob and Edom. Jacob is the good Jew. Edom is the bad Jew. Ishmael is the Noahide. That's the three groups: Jacob, Edom, and Ishmael. Good Jew, bad Jew, Noahide. The bad Jew.
So you are
can
saying
only
the Arabs are Noahide, not the Chinese people can't be Noahide, huh?
No, they can.
Chinese
Ishmael is a symbol. It's just a symbol of all Noahides.
Yeah, interpretative acrobats.
Symbol. So
yeah.
Jacob symbolizes all good Jews. Edom, Esau, his brother, symbolizes all bad Jews. And Ishmael symbolizes all good Noahides. Okay? Edom.
Which is not. But no, Alan, you buried yourself. Why?
Why?
The whole mankind is not Abraham's descendant.
No, this is the way we view.
So
everybody has a worldview. Every culture, every nation has a worldview, and this is our worldview. This is our worldview. Okay, so the worldview for us.
Noahides are Muslims. Noahides are Muslims. Based on what you said, okay, you should be targeting Muslims, Arab Muslims, okay, for Noahidism, and you are not qualified to go from Euphrates onwards to other people who are not Abrahamic. You see, I understand it as such when you told it like that.
As I said earlier on in our conversation, Judaism is an attempt to give a spiritual and religious meaning to our history. We take our history and we try and get a spiritual meaning from it. So our history begins with Abraham's children and grandchildren, Ishmael, Jacob, and Edom. And then we try to get a spiritual meaning from this. What does this mean for us? Is it just history with no meaning? Or do we have a religious spiritual meaning from this? And we say, okay, this is a symbol for us to learn how to see the world. Edom is the lost Jew, the secular Jew, the heretic. Jacob is the good Jew, and Ishmael is our
Why there is an interpretative monopoly on this? Why I can't interpret it differently? See, from the same.
It's not your inheritance. It's not your story. Do you love this story? Do you want this story? Do you say, yes, Abraham is my father? If you say Abraham's my father, I want this story, it's mine, I want it, then you can do it because you become part of the Hebrew people. If you say, no, I don't want it, this is not my story, this is somebody else's story, then you can't because it's not your story, right? But if you want it, I'm not going to stop you from taking it. You can take it. Any non-Jew who says, that's my story, Abraham's my father, is welcome into the Hebrew family. We adopt them. They come into our family. We say that your soul is Jewish. Come on in. You have a Hebrew soul. Jewish, not a Jew.
Self-declaration, just by self-declaration.
basically by showing your love for the story and making your devotion to pass this story on to your children and becoming a link in the chain, you become part of the chain of history. You have to. It's not a declaration of your mouth. You have to make some action. Come on in, then. Do it. Prove. Put your money where your mouth is. Prove it. You say you're a Hebrew. Let's see if you're a Hebrew. So if you come in and say, this is my history, this is my inheritance, I want this history, I want this story, I want Abraham as my father. Abraham symbolizes the father of all mankind. He symbolizes that. He's like a new Adam. Abraham's children represent three kinds of people, if you like. Well, Abraham represents the father of all righteous people. You can be a righteous person because your parents are righteous.
Dwelling in the lying kingdom. You are dwelling and you are lost and you are straying into the world. I wish you good luck, but these are lies. And your whole identity is built upon them.
Well, all I was trying to do is respond to your questions for clarity. I'm explaining our legends, our mythology to you.
Fantasy. It was a good slip of mouth. Your fantasy.
You also have fantasy. You have Ahura Mazda. You have Angra Mainyu, Spenta Mainyu. You have all this fantasy.
We have interpretations rendering them.
Okay, and we have interpretations rendering this for our history as well. So it's all interpretive, and I'm trying to explain to you our interpretation. If you don't explain or interpret Ahura Mazda, Spenta Mainyu, Angra Mainyu, if you don't explain this to somebody with interpretation, it's just fantasy, it's just legend, it's just mythology, it's meaningless.
No, you see, we also have some mythology like Guumart and things like that. You see, we have.
It's all mythology. The whole idea of Ahura Mazda and Spenta Mainyu and Angra Mainyu, it's all mythology.
No, they are philosophical.
Okay, it's philosophical because you have an interpretation, and I'm trying to explain to you the philosophical interpretation of our history.
You are saying Abraham is the father of all man, okay?
No, I said he symbolizes the father of all mankind, of all good men. And good men can be having wicked children. You can be a good person who has a wicked child. So the wicked child of the good man is Edom. And his brother, Jacob, is the good child of the good man. Okay? And then you have Ishmael, who is another good child of the good man, but not in the same way. Under a different wife, from a different mother. Okay? Your brother from another mother, we say. You have Jews, lost Jews, and other good people out there. And this is the family of good. That's the symbol, all right? It doesn't mean that every good person out there is Ishmael. It means Ishmael symbolizes every good person out there who is not a Jew, okay? And Edom symbolizes every bad Jew out there. Every bad Jew is symbolized by Edom. And Jacob symbolizes every good Jew. So what happens? How do we save the wicked Jew? As we're talking about the state of Israel disobeying this three oaths here, they obviously rejected Judaism. How do we deal with them? The answer is the good Jew gets together with the good non-Jew, and together they save the bad Jew. There's no way the bad Jew can ever take the place of the good Jew or take the place of the good Noahide. So the state of Israel cannot be considered to have been established by non-Jews who've become Cyrus. It doesn't happen. You understand now?
Yeah, but I suspect one can dance around it also, but I'm not knowledgeable to argue.
No, you can read through. The three oaths are very, very clear. You simply cannot.
It requires deep knowledge for Zionists.
Well, it's not that deep. It's very straightforward. No, it's not. They don't. They just simply say it's outdated. Well, they try to say that because of the Holocaust, the nations broke their side of the oath. Therefore, we can break our side of the oath. However, the land of Israel was owned by the British, and the British were involved in helping free the Jews from the Holocaust. So there's no way you could use that argument and say that the British broke their oath, therefore we had to have a war against the British to establish our independence in the state of Israel. It's
Whatever
impossible
it
to
is,
argue.
it is not simple. It is not simple as you want to portray it. You refute it in 10 seconds, and they do not know. You see, it does not. It is not reasonable to think so. I think we come in some dorahi to some dilemma of interpretative dilemma. We come, and Zionist goes somewhere, and you go the other way.
Well,
Not
no, what we do,
not the way
what
you.
Judaism does is consistent with the same way it was interpreted before the law, which is why we never went up to the land of Israel and we never established our state of Israel for hundreds and hundreds of years before the Holocaust, and then suddenly after the Holocaust, people who didn't believe in Judaism established the state of Israel. That's
Okay,
all there is
take
to it.
this scenario. Take this scenario. Freemasons as non-Jews, okay,
Yeah.
weaponize. You see, I wanna recreate the Cyrus scenario in Second
Okay.
Temple, okay, and this time I'm not putting Zionists in the forefront of this movement,
Okay.
but
You want to put
Freemasons.
non-Jews. Okay,
Yeah,
Freemasons.
Freemasons.
Noahides.
Freemasons.
Okay.
Yeah, no hides. Then the
Well,
bad Jews,
we
then the bad
we
Jews, Zionist bad Jews, then the Jews. And the chain is like that. And the Jews, the bad Jews that they are in the Israels, they are working for the. Consider that the Cyrus has give the weapons and the money for some Jews to go. They employed them, some bad Jews, to go and build the third temple.
Okay, look,
But here,
Cyrus owns the land of Israel. He
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
have to give them weapons to go and take it. He just says, "Go and settle there. It's my
okay,
land. Go
Englishman.
and
Okay,
settle."
English. Replace
Yeah. So
the
if the
Cyrus with
English,
English. Yeah.
so Cyrus would be the English. So if the British had said to the Jews, "Come on in, settle the land of the Holy Land here. It's for you. You're all welcome. We're going to help you establish yourselves here. We want you to observe your religion there." Then that would have been fine. But the British didn't do that. And instead, the secular Jews went up with weapons against Cyrus to try and take the land from him. And somehow they won. They defeated Cyrus. They threw Cyrus off. And Cyrus never got a chance to give the land to the good Jews.
Okay, okay. Then answer this scenario. If Cyrus were to invade the Israel, to think that the land of Israel was not in the hand of the Cyrus, and he
Yeah.
has just freed Jews from the Babel, okay, and he
Yeah.
wanna march on there and free there, and he wants Jews to recruit the army. You are saying that those should refuse would have to be refusing to participate
Yes,
in
you're
the.
describing a scenario which actually happened in history in the 600s, in the 610s. His name was Khosrau II, and he decided to march into the land of Israel and take the land of Israel. And he actually used a Jewish army, vanguard, to go and do this. And what happened at that time is that the representative for the Orthodox Jews in Persia at that time refused to serve as an army because Judaism is a pacifist religion and does not believe in fighting. So Cyrus removed him from the head of the Jews, and he replaced him with a Karaite. I mentioned the Karaites before, a different type of Israelite. They claim to have their own religion. They believe in violence. They believe in fighting. And his name was Nehemiah ben Hushiel, and he got an army of Karaites to go and conquer the land and establish themselves there.
What?
Then he turned
Wasn't he
against.
this Salman Farsi? He heard that name.
No, it wasn't Salman the Farsi. No, Salman Farsi is not. Salman Farsi was related to the Exilarch. Nehemiah ben Hushiel was a Karaite. Salman the Farsi was a Pharisee. Pharisees and Karaites are different religion. It's not possible that they could be considered the same religion. You might have heard it from Muslims because they like to spread this idea, but it's not correct. It's a misinterpretation of something which was said by somebody called Ben Abrahamson, who's a friend of mine, and he works closely with Muslims. Ben Abrahamson his work has been misinterpreted to get the idea that Salman the Farsi was a relative of Nehemiah ben Hushiel. It wasn't. Pharisee and Karaite are different religions. Karaites are aggressive, violent, fighting, warlike people. Pharisees are pacifists. We read books. We don't believe in fighting. Anyway, they conquered the land. It became part of Khosrau's empire. Then Khosrau turned against the Karaites and kicked them out of the land. And the Karaites came back to start establishing the religion of Islam, which is why the Qari in Islam is actually the one who recites the Quran, for example, is actually the leaders. The original leaders were the Qari'un, and that word is actually Arabic word for Karaite. So Islam basically descends from Karaites. In other words, that's basically the same thing.
Quran is from the same root.
Quran is from the same root, exactly. Yeah. So that situation happened, and they came in, and they failed because God is not on their side, because God is only on the side of those people who are keeping peaceful way of life, not violence and aggression. We believe that's what Judaism says. So we could say the Angra Mainyu was with Nehemiah ben Hushiel, and the Angra Mainyu can have an influence on the planet Earth, but not for very long, because in the end, the Spenta Mainyu will come and have its influence more. The light will shine in the darkness, and the darkness will flee from the light. We believe that. So this is something we have in common. What is an interesting question you could ask this? What if Cyrus the Great now, somewhere in the world, some Noahide group out there of Noahide, say, Persians or Noahide British or Noahide Russians, decides to go in and storm the land of Israel, conquer it and decimate the population, and then turns to the religious Jews like me and says, come on in, settle down, we want to give you the land? In that case, we would say that person was definitely Cyrus the Great, and they really were the Messianic Noahide Messiah. They really did fulfill the role of the Messiah that the Noahides is supposed to.
So if that person is Jew, it is not. It is prohibited. If it is not Jew, it is okay. Huh?
Correct. Yes.
It is a
so
bit
if Saudi Arabia wanted to storm in there now, conquer the whole place, and do a Gaza on Israel, and then was going to turn around to the religious Jews and say, "You're welcome in peace. Come and live in peace," then that would be fine.
So why a Jew cannot break from being
We're
Jew?
prohibited from doing this. We cannot do this. It's against our religion.
No, a Jew cannot unjew himself, huh?
No, a Jew cannot unjew himself. That's right.
There's no spell for it, huh? Because
there's no magic spell that unjews you. That's right.
Because then Zionism can be considered modern Cyrus. But only
but
because
unfortunately they can't,
Jews.
because they can't unjew themselves. That's right. Yeah. So the destiny of the state of Israel today is exactly the same destiny as it was established by the fanatics in the past. They will be kicked out. They will be destroyed according to the pattern of history. We believe that our history has a pattern, and when the Jews take the land according to the righteous way of God, of holiness, they will be allowed to stay. But if the Jews take the land according to a wicked way of unholiness, they will be kicked out within a couple of generations. So we don't expect the state of Israel to continue much longer.
But I am against seeing that the Englishman as some kind of, you can work around it to consider them like Cyrus, and the Zionists, the Jewish Zionists are merely they're the servants of the land, but the main owner is the Englishman, Freemasons. You see, I
didn't hear what you said. You were cut off just now. Can you repeat what you just said, please, about British and Zionist and Freemasons?
I say you can consider the main actors of Israel, Englishmen and the Freemasons, and the Zionists are just doing. They are serving them. Okay, but in the second temple, okay, the Jews they do the legislative work. They do the protection. I don't know. They had some political role, right? So one can consider Zionists as a secondary force in the Israel. That way, I can
when if I don't understand why if the Freemasons, so you're suggesting that the Freemasons actually established the state of Israel and they were English, but you know the state of what we call the state of Israel once upon a time was called British Mandate Palestine. Do you know that, right? Before
Yeah, some
1948, so it was owned by the
okay.
British. Why would they have to? If it was owned by them publicly, openly, everybody knew that Palestine was British. Why did
Yeah.
they have to pretend to be secretly giving it to Jews rather than just saying, "Here, it's yours, take it"? Why would they have to pretend that it wasn't theirs, and they have to make it look like the Jews are taking it from them rather than just openly doing it? Why that would be
It's
like Cyrus saying to the Jews, secretly, I want to give you the land of Israel, but I don't want to tell anybody that I'm giving you the land of Israel. Instead, I'm going to give you lots of weapons to go in there and take control of the land of Israel from me. That doesn't make any sense. That's insanity. Why would Cyrus allow? Why would
after the
Cyrus
Second
arm?
World War. After the Second World War, there has been some hidden agreements, I suppose. Okay.
But why would? But what you're suggesting is Cyrus secretly armed the Jews in World War II because the Freemasons are basically Noahites. You're saying, what if the Freemasons, Cyrus, secretly armed the Jews to attack Cyrus's own people and insult Cyrus in public, so that Cyrus has to pull out and lose face, and then Cyrus is going to secretly wink at this army and say, "Well done, you did exactly what I wanted you to do." That's kind of mad. I mean, that doesn't make any kind of sense. That sounds like a total lunacy, a loony idea.
Did Israeli Zionists fight British in the Israel land,
Yes.
or huh?
Didn't you
They
know
fought
that?
them?
Yes. Didn't you know? They blew up British institutions, British hotels. There was a lot of terrorism from the Jews against the British in order to secure the land of Israel. Eventually, the British said, "That's it. We're not going to stay here anymore. We're pulling out." And they pulled out, and the Jews took over control of Israel. That's how it happened.
I
Didn't you know
thought that
that?
they bought. I thought the Englishman has bought the land in Israel to give them to Zionists.
No, no, no. The British conquered the land and took it. It was the French and the British divided up the Ottoman Caliphate. The Ottomans controlled the land. The Turks, they controlled the land. The Ottoman Caliphate was defeated, and the British and the French divided up the Middle East between themselves. And the British controlled Palestine, and the French controlled Libya and Syria. And I think the British also controlled Iraq, and they created these countries. They created Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Palestine.
But
They were
there was a
created by the
land
British
purchase.
and the
There
French.
was a land purchase, you see, to
Well,
to
actually, what happened was that the Caliphate collapsed, and the British and the French took control of the land. So this was a long time ago. This was ages ago. So the British were in control of the land of Palestine, and they were the rulers of the land of Palestine, and it was their land. And in 1940, and during the World War II, the Nazis tried to invade Palestine. They tried to take Palestine away from the British. Did you know that? The Nazis were invading, trying to take it from the British, right?
no.
But they failed. Nazis lost World War II, which is what I was talking about on this show at the beginning. We celebrate the defeat of the fascists this week. Thank God.
Good camera.
Yeah, and and then the British were in control from the 8th of May 1945. They were in control of Palestine again until 1948, when the British gave up and handed Palestine over to the Jews. Why did the British pull out of Palestine? Why did they give up? They pulled out because of the terrorist acts committed by the Ben-Gurion's army against the British. So the British gave up and said, "Here, have it." And so the British gave in to the
What if it
terrorists.
was staging? What if it was staging and it was a hidden agreement? Okay,
That's what I can't
then-
understand. Why would the British secretly agree to give the land of Palestine over the Jews,
Yeah.
and allow the Jewish army of Ben Gurion to attack British institutions and blow up British places and kill British people and kill British soldiers? Why would they allow that if they wanted the Jews to have the land? Why wouldn't they just say, "Take it"? That doesn't make any sense to me.
If there was such an agreement, then can we deem Zionism as legitimate and the Third Temple building movement if it was
But it would
some
be,
conditions
but don't
like
you
that?
see, surely if they were trying to make it look legitimate, they would have to do it according to the three oaths, because that was the fundamental rule of Judaism at the time. And everybody knew that the Jews are not going to be able to take this land unless it's given to them in peace, like Cyrus the Great did. In order to fulfill prophecy, if the British wanted to make it look like prophecy was being fulfilled, they wouldn't do it secretly. They would do it openly and say, here, because that is the only way the prophecy could be fulfilled. The prophecy could not be fulfilled if it was done secretly. It would have to be done openly. And the British would have to say, we are giving you the land. Welcome and come and settle in peace. Exactly the same way as Cyrus the Great did. If it was done in any other way, it would not fulfill prophecy. That's why real Jews who observe Judaism understand that the state of Israel is not the fulfillment of this prophecy. It is the fulfillment of a different prophecy, which is about something called the Mamzer state. When it says the Mamzer shall dwell in Ashdod, this is a prophecy which says that there will be a wicked state established in Ashdod, which is basically in the state of Israel right now. So it's the Mamzer state. It's not this prophecy.
Okay,
It's a
how this ownership of Zionism, excuse me, be clinified? What do
the
I
only
mean?
way is literally if the Zionists were conquered by another country, and then that country peacefully offered it to religious Jews.
Okay,
There's no other way.
Okay, now think that this conquering be voluntarily, meaning that Zionism, okay, voluntarily, okay, surrenders itself to another power, okay, then the another power
Sure.
bestows the same thing again. You
Yes,
see,
that's possible.
then
If
so
Israel
exactly
surrendered
the
itself
same
to
Israel.
Jordan,
Yeah.
if Israel surrendered itself to Jordan or Lebanon or Syria and says, we surrender, we want to be part of your territory, we hand all of our political power over to you, we resign, and all the government resigned, and it was controlled by Jordan or Syria or Saudi Arabia or Lebanon or even Egypt, right? Okay? Or even Palestine, and say, we surrender, it's your land now. Okay? If they did that, and then the new the new rulers of the land said, we want to welcome all Jews to this land in peace, then that would be a fulfillment of prophecy.
Okay, so suppose that there was just a pause in the Zionist Israeli regime. There was a pause. They bestowed the power to the another nation. Then the other nation, okay, resumes it. Okay, then so exactly the same Israel would be legitimate. You can argue something like that.
You could, but it would have to change its mentality from a militaristic state where everybody is forced to have serve in the IDF, which is the current state. It would have to turn into a pacifist state where it was basically just about reading books and
so after in the Second Temple situation, didn't they protect their land? Didn't they have armies in the post Second Temple?
Yes. Well, what happened was that Persia was replaced by Alexander the Great, the Greek Empire, and they conquered the land of Israel.
Stop. Then at the Persian time, as a satrapy, I assume, the Israeli land.
Yes, it was a satrapy. Yes.
Yeah. Didn't they provide the manpower? You are saying pacifist. Oh, they have to do some function for their land, or isn't it?
Well, there's two things. Number one, they didn't need an army because the Persian army was their army.
So they recruited from them. The satraps have to give them army. It is not the Persian army, central army.
But it's when I say the Persian army, it means the Persian army was consisting of the people of the Persian Empire, right? Am I wrong? The people of the Persian Empire served in the Persian army. Yes.
So the Jews give the soldiers for them. The IDF was there also.
Well, it
I
wasn't
don't
an
know why.
IDF, really, was it? It was a Persian army, wasn't it? Because it was a satrapy of Persia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Just in framing, different framing, but the soul of the action is the same. IDF
So,
is a
for example,
force
there
that
were plenty of Sikh people who served in the British Army in India. Okay, but they never called it the Indian Army. It was always called the British Army until India became independent.
yeah, only
So it's the
framing
same.
issue. I only see it as a framing issue, not the fundamental dynamics that
But
is going on there with regards to pacifism. Okay,
there
you
may have
say
been there may have been plenty of Jews from the who Cyrus sent back to the land of Israel, the satrapy of Israel. There may have been plenty of those Jews who served in Cyrus's army. Okay, that's not disputed. There may have been plenty of them, but there's a second problem. The second issue is this: that when they came back after Babylon, they failed to adhere to the religion, and the prophets condemned them for failing to do so. And moreover, one of them called Ezra, the scribe, and other scribes tried to rewrite the history of the Jewish people in two books, which were called Book of Chronicles, Chronicles 1 and Chronicles 2. And if you read Chronicles 1 and Chronicles 2, and then you read the other scriptures, you'll see that there's a lot of differences between the two books. Because Chronicles 1 and Chronicles 2 is like a rewriting the history, trying to say how wonderful the Jews were throughout history, and we never did anything wrong, and we never had any evil kings, and everything was always good, 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 good. They tried to rewrite the history at that time, and the prophets condemned them for doing so. And as a result, we were conquered by the Greeks. When the Greeks conquered us, we surrendered because we didn't put up a fight. We had no fight. We just surrendered immediately. And then later, when the Greeks tried to force us to adopt their religion, then we started to fight. And we managed to establish our own country again, which was the Hasmonean kingdom. Only when the Greeks tried to force us to adopt their religion.
Hakan, thank you very much. As a last note, okay, I had a question. From Nile to the Euphrates, okay, it is in the
River of Egypt.
scripture, right?
Yeah,
Nile
it says River
from
of Egypt. Actually, it doesn't say Nile.
River.
It says River of Egypt. Yeah,
Yeah. It has. I gather that they are for the children of Abraham. as
children
is
of
in the-
Ibrahim. Exactly. Any and all of them. That includes
So
Muslims.
how do you no, because the Arabian Peninsula, for example, Yemen, I don't think
Yeah.
it is in that territory, or you consider it.
Well, it's difficult to know exactly which river of Egypt is intended. But what is certain is it's either there's a river which divides Gaza, for example. It could be that river because Gaza was traditionally regarded as part of Egypt. It wasn't regarded as part of the Holy Land. So Gaza could be part of Egypt, and so it'd be from somewhere from Gaza to somewhere in Syria, probably, or in Jordan to the Euphrates River. And it says that God will give this land to the descendants of Abraham, which includes Muslims as well, you remember, and Christians. Yeah. So that prophecy was already fulfilled like thousands of years ago, long time ago. The land became filled. That area is full of Christians, Muslims, and Jews, and that prophecy has been and gone.
So the IDF has it in it's bad. I thought that it is trying to the greater Israel is
Yeah,
inspiring to go that
the
way.
greater Israel idea is from Jewish nationalists, what we call the far right in Judaism. Jewish nationalists are not Jews who practice Judaism; they're Jews who practice nationalism instead. They reject Judaism as an early stage of nationalism. So they say Judaism is outdated; it's just a primitive form of nationalism, and we should
They
follow
are
a
right.
modern. Yeah, they say we should follow modern nationalism instead, and they take what they want from the scriptures, and they throw away the pacifism of Judaism, and they believe that because in Judaism, so like I said, for example, we take our history and we try to find a spiritual religious interpretation of our history. Okay, so in our history, there was a time when the Jewish invaders came into the land of Canaan, and they killed every man and every woman, every child, every animal, and burned down every tree. Okay, it's complete destruction. So this is a very dark part of our history, and we interpret this means that we should get rid of every evil. We should get rid of every evil inside of ourselves, and we should try and establish good. Okay, but the religious nationalist says no. Judaism is wrong. It's not about getting rid of evil. It's about killing everybody who's not a Jew. So the religious nationalist believes that they have to take control of the whole land between the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, and they have to kill every man, every woman, every child, every animal, and every tree to establish a new Jewish order in that area. This is Jewish nationalism.
Which is different from Zionism, right? Not necessarily Zionism.
It's very different from Zionism. It's extreme nationalistic, political, militaristic Zionism. It's extreme. Yeah. Zionism is also a confusing word. You know, Zionism can be spiritual Zionism, which is called diasporism, or it can be called, Zionism without spiritual Zionism. It can be material Zionism. Material Zionism means that you should control the land of Israel. Spiritual Zionism means that wherever you go, Israel is inside of your heart. So you don't need to control the land because Israel is a spiritual location. I'm a spiritual Zionist. That means I'm a diasporist. I can live anywhere in the universe, and Israel is with me in my heart. But a religious nationalist or a Jewish nationalist believes a very different way. They're very materialistic, very militaristic. It's a very different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
They don't believe in Judaism. Okay, brother. I've enjoyed chatting with you. I hope I've learned things from you. I hope that we'll have another chance to talk again in the future, and that you'll stick listening to this channel. We can maybe one day talk more about socialism and capitalism and the process, what's going to happen in the future as well. Thank you for joining me. I very much appreciate it. God bless you. Take care.
Great.
And thank you. So I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. And I hope that anybody else who was listening to this for the past 3 hours and 11 minutes also found it interesting. God bless you all. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Shalom. Bye-bye.